You are tuned into the Secret Teachings pre-show this Friday, November 7th, 2025. I am your host, Ryan Gable. You can see the pre-show introduction and listener comment banner scrolling across the bottom of your screen. If you can't see that, then you're listening in the audio archive only. And you should know that we do have a video feed of tonight's show. I tried to do a 10 or 15-minute pre-show because we have a lot of listeners that trickle in as soon as the show starts. Hopefully you got the notification tonight. I tried to push it out through social media. I tried to push it out through YouTube and X and Facebook. Almost every listener who has emailed me said that they don't get the notifications. So I'm not sure what the problem is. It could probably have something to do with the YouTube censorship, especially considering that on a lot of past shows we've had like, I don't know, 1,000 people or more that had viewed it, but we only got 200 views, and the views actually drop off after a while. I'm not sure what that's all about. That's why I don't do a lot of YouTube, but we are here tonight, and we've been here on Fridays for a couple of months now because listeners like you support the show. You buy books, you subscribe, you listen to the free archive, and all of that allows me to do these Friday night shows. So let's get right to it and look at the chat room. We'll spend a couple of minutes on this. I'll comment, answer any questions, etc., and then we will start the main live show at the top of the hour, roughly. We also have, if you didn't notice, on the show title tonight, we have a roundtable discussion about Three Eye Atlas, UFOs, aliens, and all of the other things that go along with that. In the chat room, Deborah is here. Hello, Deborah. We also have Leonard. Leonard is here. Hello, Leonard. Good morning. It is my morning. Is it your morning too, Leonard? Are you in the same part of the world I'm in, or are you in the United States? Good evening where you are, I assume. Death0910. Hello and welcome to the chat. Bad Whiskey is also here. Hello. Patrick Hartman is here. Marilyn Kluger has joined us from Florida. A lot of listeners in Florida. It's my home state. Patriot Girl is also here. Hello, Patriot Girl. Jackie Blue is here. Hello, Jackie. How are you? We also have in the chat room Tim Curley, Clay Davis. You know, I see Tim. I'll put Clay up on the screen real quick. Clay Davis, 4554. Hello, Clay. I see Tim on some other YouTube chats. And Tim, you're going to enjoy a special episode of the Secret Teachings next week, all about our good friend David Wilcock and all about the collapsing of his con. We have a special show prepared next week. I actually went through some of his videos and I found some of those photos of what he's done to that house. He's an absolute slob. He's destroyed the place on top of everything else. So I think Tim will really enjoy that show. Hope you enjoy tonight's show too, Tim. Edward Preston is here. Hello, Edward. Thank you for joining us. Looks like Chris V is here. Is anyone still calling it 31 Atlas? I'm sure that they are. I've heard 31 Atlas. I've heard 3i Atlas. I didn't know what to call it myself because you just listen to what people say online and then you get confused. So you have to really go and look at it for yourself, I suppose. We also have in the chat room Antonio L. Good to see you, Ryan, and audience. Great shows. Thank you so much. Chris says clever title. Well, that's what I try to do here on the Secret Teachings. Try to do a clever show title. 3i Atlas Shrugged. And this show promo is an older show promo because I did a show back in, what was it? Back in July, August, called 3i Atlas Shrugged. Tonight we've tacked on the subtitle again. Atlas Shrugged again. Ancient aliens or ancient intelligence. We will explore all of those ideas tonight on the show. Joe Ryder says he's excited. Also great shows this week. I appreciate that. It seems to be a pretty consensus thought in the chat room here that people enjoyed the shows this week. I'm really glad, especially the two-part series from Monday and Tuesday. And then we talked a lot about the same types of things Wednesday and Thursday, but I tried to break them up into different show topics. So I'm glad that you all enjoyed the show so much throughout this week. Noka is here. Aloha Noka. And Miss Dos Dokos is also here. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of people who are normally in the chat, but it looks like we have some new people and a lot of listeners, it looks like, are tuned in earlier than normal. So that's great. You'll catch the very start of the show, which is why we do these pre-shows to get people into the chat room in time. You know, if I start the show at 9, well, 9 a.m. my time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, people show up at 7:30. So if I set it at 6:30, they show up at 7. So we got to do a couple of minutes of a pre-show to get people in here. A lot of people like being fashionably late. Of course, it's so early. Maybe on the Pacific coast that people are still working, perhaps. Either way, it's still available for free in the archive, and it will be on YouTube afterwards. If I've seen some of you have to go, I think Tim had to leave a little bit early, so already. So thanks for popping in, Tim. And for those of you who have to leave early, it'll still be here. And if it gets taken down, it'll be in the audio archive either way. Joe said Ryan got sassy this week. I don't know. I don't think it was sassy. I think it was. I don't know what the word would be. Perhaps I don't have a large enough vocabulary, but I think it was frustration, as always. Maybe frustration. I don't know if it was sassy. Maybe it was sassy. I don't know. Am I sassy? I didn't think I was sassy. Maybe I'm sassy. Flux Capacitor is here. Flux is always here. Hello, Flux. Thank you for joining us in the chat room. I start reading off these YouTube handles and I get behind in the chat. So let's see if anybody else has joined us. Through the Darkness is here. Hello, Through the Darkness. Thank you for joining us. Rita Moore is here. Thank you, Rita. I think Rita's always, like Flux, always here. I think Joe Ryder's always here. A lot of you are always here. Jason Wango. Hello. Leonard is listening in Illinois. Hello from Tokyo, from Japan. You are in Illinois. And there are a lot of listeners in Illinois, too. A lot of friends in Illinois. This looks like Jenny the Alchemist. I appreciate you doing these shows on YouTube, Ryan, despite the censorship. Well, I appreciate you listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to the show, despite the fact that it's kind of hard to find because of the way that the algorithm suppresses it. I am curious. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Jenny? Are you getting the notifications from YouTube? Are you getting the notifications for the live show? A few people do, but most people don't. I don't even get notifications for my own show. If I set it up on a separate device, it doesn't notify me. 6G Agenda. Howdy, hello, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. Cindy C is also here from Southern Illinois, another Illinois listener. Jason is in Wisconsin. Sylvia, hello, Sylvia. Thank you for joining us. Sylvia's in San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, Texas. Thank you for joining us from Texas. I like Texas a lot. It's a big state. A lot of fun things to do in Texas. Don't think would have never moved there, but I did enjoy Texas. Being in Central Texas felt like I was trapped because no matter which direction you went, it was like a 4-hour, 5-hour drive to get out of the state. It kind of felt like a prison in a way when you're in Central Texas. Let's see who else is here. Rita, I don't know if there was another Rita, but hello again, Rita, or hello to the second Rita in the chat. Timberwolf is also here. Zach is here. Zach Diecast, thank you for joining us in the chat. Looks like we have a lot of listeners who kind of pop in and out. Everybody seems to be here before the show starts tonight. That's great. Steve Hess is here, also from Illinois. Says, I hear you on Ground Zero. Yeah, did you hear the Oracle show that we did? That was the Oracle card show that we did. That was a fun show. We should do that on the Secret Teachings sometime. We should do an Oracle show. I'm actually thinking about switching over from StreamYard to Riverside. And when I do that, I'm going to try to get a phone number for the Friday show so we can do call-ins. And it would be nice if we could do an Oracle card show. I have them right here somewhere. Yeah, I have the Synchronicity Oracle card deck. This is actually what Clyde and I were using for those shows. So we have the Synchronicity Oracle card deck right here. We should pull that out sometime if we can take calls and do that right here on the Secret Teachings. put that away real fast. All righty. Anybody else? Moose Girl in Wisconsin. Jackie is also here. Hopefully YouTube will stop changing my handle. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know anything much about it, but I've heard that they're doing that. I'm not sure what the issue is or why that is. Zach is in Oklahoma. Looks like Vampirox, McAllen, Texas, another listener in Texas. It's weird we have like concentrated listeners in certain states, Florida, Illinois, Texas. There's a lot of listeners in California is so big. I think I assume there's a lot of people there. We have a lot of listeners in like random bizarre places too, like just random parts of Africa or random parts of they're not random, but they seem random parts of Russia or something. I look at stats for that. Tyrants is here. Hello and welcome to the show in the chat. The key to the gate, another listener handle, Vancouver Island. Hey, we got a Canadian in the chat room. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we've gone through the chat, a lot of listeners here, and the number is growing. We're going to start the actual show now. We have a roundtable discussion tonight. I will spend a few minutes at the beginning of the show discussing, we're going through basically a monologue and setting up the show, and then we'll bring in our co-hosts tonight. We have Mike D and we have Nick, who were with us for that roundtable, kind of a spontaneous roundtable discussion on another Friday episode of the show. And people loved it so much. They loved what Mike had to present, and they loved having Nick on the show. A lot of listeners never had heard a roundtable with the three of us. We used to do that a long time ago on college radio in Orlando. And it's kind of fun to have. It's like having a band back together. So we have that tonight. A lot of listeners really enjoyed it. So it's I'm glad because it's fun for us to do it as well. Alrighty, so I'm going to do this. I see one other new person just joined us in the chat room. WRP. Hello and good day. Good day to you too. Thank you for joining us in the chat. I thought it said WPRK for a second. I thought it was the old radio station tuned in. That was the station, 91.5 FM WPRK, the best in basement radio. Although they bulldozed that station, it's gone now. So there's just automated radio, no more basement radio. Alrighty, let's go ahead and I'm going to bring down the show promo, and we will get started here in just a moment. You'll hear the music. I'm not sure sometimes on YouTube why it will cut in and out, even if I plug it into StreamYard, which is why I'm considering going to Riverside and trying something new. But whatever that issue is, I'm going to get that worked out soon. If you're in the regular show archive, the audio archive, subscriber or otherwise, obviously you have no audio issues, and you might wonder what I'm talking about. If you're listening on YouTube, for some reason it'll cut in and out, and I don't know why that is, because I've also listened on like the X or Facebook feed, and it doesn't do that. So I'm kind of confused what the issue is. Maybe it's like a bandwidth thing, or I'm not really sure, but I'll fix that eventually. Alrighty, let's get the show started. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. I'll get the show intro up here in just a moment.
Hello? Anybody home?
Today, I want you to open your mind.
I've almost come to the conclusion that the story is so damning that the mass of people can't deal with it.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques to get people actually to love their servitude.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
To change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, then you have a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons, there's simply thoughts. Prejudices.
As you connect the dots between different people, organizations, religions, history, suddenly the picture starts to form.
The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men.
Someone born in the United States is not more special than someone born in Mexico. They're just vehicles for the consciousness to experience.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
It was learned that the aliens had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children. Music, television, books.
Prey on children's innocence. How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc is now in the possession of the Army.
Too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for Mankind in the Twilight Zone.
About time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth.
If you don't connect the dots, it's just a mass of what's all this about.
You are listening to the Secret Teachings Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. It is Friday, November 7th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of TST Radio. If you'd like to contact the show, you can email rdgable@yahoo.com. You can also reach out to me on social media, Facebook, X, even YouTube, where we are streaming live tonight. So for those of you in the audio-only archive, know that you can find a video version of tonight's show, whether you're a subscriber or not. It is free to listen because so many listeners listen to the free archive. That finances the show through ads. People buy books. People subscribe to the ad-free archive. And since we have a little bit left over and I have the ability to do it, we're able to do these live Friday night shows. So if you're unaware of that, you're just learning about that, please join us on Friday nights. You can come into the chat room. We do a pre-show, and we will speak with you then and throughout the show as well. I'm also looking to get the show perhaps a call-in number for the first time in a very long time. I need to switch the StreamYard over to maybe Riverside first, and then I'll look into getting that number for Friday night shows. Otherwise, the Secret Teachings has really turned into a lecture series. We did have a clock for the show for a while, and then I just scrapped the clock entirely and thought, I don't need to do this. I can just do the whole lecture, without having to take breaks, especially because it's nice being on network radio, but things have moved so much toward radio online or podcasting online, or more like presentations or just people sitting back and talking without breaks, that I guess this is the extent to which I've sort of adapted in the new ecosystem. So we have, basically a lecture each night of the week, and sometimes we still have guests on. Sometimes we have roundtable discussions, and we'll have one of those tonight with our co-hosts, Mike and Nick. They were on a recent show, kind of by happenstance that we all got together. We used to do shows together a long time ago on college radio, and we are back together tonight to discuss. I would be upset at myself if I just reduced the show to aliens or Three-Eye Atlas. Things are a little bit more complicated than that. I like to think outside the box. So tonight's show I called Three-Eye Atlas Shrugged. It's a show that we did an episode on called Three-Eye Atlas Shrugged a couple of months ago. I did another show called Messianic Triplicity, both of which were about Three-Eye Atlas. The Atlas Shrugged show was back on September 10th, and the Messianic Triplicity show, which I thought was one of the best shows I've done all year, was back in August. I will also take both of those shows, merge them, and upload them as a best of in the archive for this weekend, so you don't have to scroll through the archive to find them. But on those shows, I looked at Three-Eye Atlas in a slightly different way. And by different way, I mean, relatively speaking, instead of doing what a lot of UFO people do online, I actually went and read the paper by Avi Loeb. I know it's crazy. I went and actually read it. And when I read it, I thought, what these people are saying about Avi Loeb and Three-Eye Atlas it's like completely contrary to what he actually said. And look, I don't know Avi Loeb. I have a good friend of mine who is really good friends with him. I respect and trust his opinion. I don't know Avi Loeb, though. I've never interviewed him. I should at some point get him on the show. I have the connection, the contact to do that, of course. But I just listen to what people say, and then I go to the source, and I'm like, this paper that he wrote doesn't say what people are claiming that it says. And so that's one angle that is slightly different than what you're hearing. There's a lot of things like that, though, in ufology especially. And we know about the history of, well, at least Richard Doty and Paul Benowitz and what they've done to since the 50s. And we have the report on that, the Robertson panel report, what the military and what the intelligence community has done to ufology. They've infiltrated it. And back then it wasn't ufology, it was people that were scientists. And now it's just a lot of people online selling fake stories. And now the new congressional investigation into UFOs has also deteriorated, I think, to the point where it's almost like a Richard Doty is kind of running it. So many of the things that were presented to Congress have turned out to be fake, or Congress opens up these secret briefing rooms. They call them SCIFs, and they have a name for it. It's called SCIF flu, where just the people that have the evidence don't show up for it. So it's kind of turned into like a modern day Robertson panel report is how I've looked at it. So my thoughts are this, and we'll bring in our guests / co-hosts here in a moment, but I need to lay this out before we go into the subject matter tonight. Although it's not completely here today and gone tomorrow, all the conspiracy theories and science fiction, at least thus far, about Three-Eye Atlas that have been sold online, they are kind of here today and gone tomorrow. They were here yesterday, they're gone today. The comet reached its perihelion position near the sun on Halloween, or roughly Halloween. And of course, all the claims about Three-Eye Atlas from pretty much any source have, whether that's mainstream, alternative, it's alien theories, whatever, virtually none of it turned out to be true. Now, on the other hand, the comet did change its color. It did change its brightness. It did change its, now this is reportedly, and when I say reportedly, I don't know what that means, because every report I read is like, I don't know, it's like different. It's like a different thing. Everything I read is contrary to the next thing I read. I'm kind of confused on what's being reported, because I read that it turned blue, then I read that it turned green, and I thought, did it turn blue and green? Like, are these two separate reports? I'm really kind of uncertain of what's even being reported. So anyway, it's acting odd is the point. Okay, but what is odd is an important question. What is odd? Especially for an interstellar object. There's been now 3 of them. And if we've never studied something before, of course, it's going to be odd. We've never seen it before. So anything that we do see is going to be new. And since it's interstellar and it's not a typical, quote, comet, it's going to behave bizarrely because we have nothing to base it on. We have nothing to compare it to. So it's going to behave odd. Odd doesn't mean alien invasion. It doesn't mean the Earth's going to be destroyed by a comet. It just means we don't know what it is. It just means unusual. We should obviously keep an open mind to things, which is all that Avi Loeb's paper that you can see on your screen actually says. It's like, let's just keep an open mind. And I've shown this to you several times, but since you're watching the show, you can read it for yourself, the conclusion that Avi Loeb says that it's likely, he says by far the most likely outcome will be that 3I Atlas is a completely natural interstellar object, probably a comet. So everything that people have said about it, quoting Avi Loeb, are wrong, including, I think, the conspiracy theories about Avi Loeb, which we'll get to in a second. But I need to really lay this foundation before we start the show. So odd doesn't mean alien invasion. It just means unusual. And we should keep an open mind to different theories about 3I Atlas, or about anything for that matter, which I think is, there's a lot of misunderstandings about, scientific theories, because we trust, authoritative sources, and we look for ones that confirm our bias. So that's why a lot of people find themselves, I think, attracted to Avi Loeb, because he has unique ideas or theories, or he says, let's have an open mind, and people just think that he said it was an alien spaceship coming to invade Earth. But what the thing is, with the success of all of this 3I Atlas stuff, now you're starting to see stories more and more like this. This isn't new, but it's becoming a new thing. Like, there's a Soviet spacecraft that's orbiting the Earth, and there's headlines that have been run that claim that it's an ancient artifact. And then when you read the article, they say, actually, by ancient artifact from an ancient civilization, we mean, i.e., the Soviet Union. I mean, that's just kind of clickbait, internet stuff. But, from the size of 3I Atlas to its nickel composition to its non-gravitational acceleration, and including its inbound direction from the general area of where that WOW signal originated, it's not irrational to consider the possibility of a Bracewell probe or something similar. But an alien invasion is kind of more of a stretch, because it's not coming near enough to Earth, officially or unofficially, to warrant concerns of an impact or a, quote, alien invasion. That's just kind of like the most extreme version of how people see things. But I wanted to share this next story with you, because some people are claiming online that 3I Atlas is broadcasting the Fibonacci sequence. And some people online claim that they translated it, and that it says, observe, prepare, understand, the gate awaits. And I couldn't help but think that sounds really similar to that 2002 crop circle of the gray alien head with the binary spiral disc. It was at the Crabwood farmhouse in Hampshire, UK, that said, beware. They translated it. It supposedly said, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises, much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. Conduit closing. The gate awaits. It sounds like people took the 3I Atlas story and merged it with this old crop circle story. Okay, but more to the point, how much of this is real as opposed to imagined? Or how much of this is man-made instead of being the opposite? How much of it is actually, quote, real? It's always debatable. It's always clickable. Considering how much lying there's been in the UFO community, nothing can really be taken seriously. So there's a boy who cried wolf situation in ufology, the boy who cried UFO. And this applies to the early years of ufology. It applies to the newest manifestations as a congressional investigation. How much is motivated by fantasy? How much is motivated by delusion? How much is motivated by genuine experience that's genuinely not explainable? That's one thing. But how much is motivated by religion is another. Remember when Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna told Joe Rogan in August that she had seen evidence of interdimensional beings and movements outside space-time? And she referred over and over again to, I believe it was the Book of Enoch and ancient astronaut theory. Well, Avi Loeb has also implied and stated directly that he thought that maybe this 3I Atlas could bring about the Messianic era. And our friend Clyde Lewis had talked to him about that as well, that this could bring in the Messianic era. And Avi Loeb and Anna Paulina Luna are both Jewish, which is interesting because the guy that originated the ancient astronaut theory was also Jewish, but he was a Torah scholar, or came from a Torah scholar family. His name was Matest Agrest. So you've got that, which is something to consider, because there is now a conspiracy theory that Avi Loeb is part of the intelligence community, and that his goal is to create hype about, quote, aliens, to bring about, the Project Bluebeam, which was not an actual project. It was something that a journalist had proposed as a theory. So there's a conspiracy theory about that. But then again, you go back and read Avi Loeb's paper, and that's not what he's actually saying. So there's so many different angles to this and so many different conspiracies. And the idea here is that regardless of what 3i Atlas actually is, if you could ask God what it is and God would tell you, whatever it is, though, it's probably rocks, metal, and gas. Any celestial event can be and always will be molded to the benefits and the beliefs of powers and people. And without clear and accepted answers, we will continue dealing with this blank slate, which is what Carl Jung talked about. He said, I believe they call it a tabula rasa. It's a blank slate. It means that we will project our beliefs and our views onto these things, especially when they're unknown. We have no idea, and we probably won't have a clear answer to this, maybe ever. One man's alien is another man's God. One man's God is another man's demon. It's all becoming more likely, I think, that if we're going to find intelligent life, and we're going to do that in the modern age, we're going to do it probably through technology. We're probably going to do it through what we call artificial intelligence, which brings up the question, is it really artificial intelligence or is it ancient intelligence? Are we bringing something through the veil and through the portal and through the cube that is the quantum computer? And is that more likely to be the source of our alien invasion as opposed to some rocks and metal floating around in space? Then you get people that don't believe in space. So it gets really complicated. Anyway, and either way, I'm Ryan Gable. This is The Secret Teachings. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I needed to lay all of that out, all of my thoughts. Now we can have a roundtable discussion on the show tonight. Let's go ahead and bring in our co-hosts. Mike D is with us. Mike, if you can go ahead and unmute. We also have our good friend Nick with us. Nick's on video tonight as well. And Mike is still appearing as a dog for his profile picture. Mike, how are you? Thank you for joining us tonight on the show.
Hey, am I muted?
No, you're unmuted. You're good to go. You're on air.
Okay, great. For some reason, my little thing in StreamYard is saying I'm muted, but...
No, you're good to go. Turn down your radio. No, you're good. You're good to go.
Turn down, sir. Please turn down your radio.
Turn down your radio. I've listened for 15 years. Well, sir, please turn down your radio. All right. Thank you.
There's an echo, sir. Are you listening to me while you're talking to me?
Yeah, hold on a second. I've got something in the microwave. I'll be right back. I've heard all those on radio before. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very good.
Yeah,
good morning.
Good on camera.
Good evening. A little bit of both for you.
A little bit of morning, a little bit of evening. Yes, I've got my foot in both worlds here.
Now I'm not seeing my video up, but I'm assuming it's probably being seen somewhere.
Yes, your video is up. Now, I hope I didn't put you guys to sleep with my monologue introduction. I'm sure you remember that from the old days. But
yeah, absolutely not at all. Not at all. It was wonderful. Appreciate that.
Okay, so these are my thoughts on 3i Atlas, my thoughts on UFOs, my thoughts on aliens. I have a lot more thoughts, but that's the general theme of the show tonight. That's what I've set up. If you guys have comments, I know Mike also has an alien story to share. Let's just have a discussion about all of this stuff and see where it takes us.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nick, would you like to go? Mike, would you like to go? Who's prepared? Who did their homework?
I did all my homework. I'm ready to go. No, not a problem.
Go ahead, Nick. Start it off.
So first of all, I want to mention that confusion looks good on you, Ryan. So don't worry about that. If you're ever feeling confused about this stuff, I think everyone does.
I must look good all the time then.
There you go. And the bottom line is that it really depends on who you're listening to and who you trust and who you believe, right? So there's certain people out there that you talk about all the time, we see on the news all the time, and certain people that I do trust and I like to hear from, I like to hear what they have to say. They're kind of in line with what I believe as well. Dr. Michio Kaku, for instance, he's always at the heart of it all. He's got a lot to say about this as well. I like what he has to say. He brings the science into it. He brings a little of the Bible into it. He brings several different areas into it. And I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think a lot of people trust him and like him as well. I would like to clarify for just a moment. So you had mentioned that so far there have been 3 interstellar, whatever you want to call them. I don't even want to put a label on it, but you had mentioned there were 3. I know about the Oumuamua. right? I've had that on my screensaver for years now. The next one is Borisov. Is that correct?
Borisov was the second one officially, yes.
Second one. Okay. And then what is the third one? Or is that the Three-Eye Atlas?
The original one was Oumuamua.
Oumuamua, yeah.
That was the original one, yes.
Right. And then Borisov. But you mentioned there were three. Is there a third one I'm not familiar with?
Well, Three-Eye Atlas would be the third one. So it was Oumuamua, Borisov, and Three-Eye Atlas in that order.
Very good. Very good. I wasn't sure if that was, we were referring to the instrument that caught them first, or is that the actual interstellar object that we're talking about?
So interesting thought assessment there, because I looked at the origin of these objects, like how they got their names, and I thought this was interesting. So Oumuamua and Borisov respectively mean, Oumuamua means messenger from afar arriving first. That's like a literal translation
in Hawaiian.
Yes, and then Borisov means the fighter. And Three-Eye Atlas, of course, we know the myth of Atlas holding up the world, strength and power and authority. So, like Avi Loeb said, there is a kind of messianic, almost lineage here, because if you put them in order, and we don't know if there'll be a fourth one, there probably will be, Oumuamua, Borisov, and Three-Eye Atlas, in essence, you could play around with the names and say that what they represent is a messenger, a fighter, arriving to shake up the world. We're relating the Atlas myth, and that is what a Messiah does. A Messiah comes very, very strong, very opposed to the typical powers that be, to save their people, like the shamanic story, and they shake things up. And regardless of what these objects are, they are shaking things up because people are scrambling to, well, one, make up new stories, but people are also scrambling to try to figure out what the hell they're seeing, because this Three-Eye Atlas keeps changing colors. There's a tail, and there's not a tail. Maybe it's made of nickel, which is weird, but it's also like, why would you make a spaceship out of nickel? That would make it extremely heavy. So there's a lot of confusion, and it's really shaking up both the science and the science fiction communities. And I don't think people know what to say who are mainline scientists. And I don't think people who make up a lot of fake UFO stories even know what to say about this, because it's behaving so erratically but then again, at the baseline, we've never seen anything like this. It doesn't mean it's weird. There's probably interstellar objects that come through the solar system all the time. We just find a few of them for the first time, and it changes. I mean, really has the potential to change our entire civilization. So it is a messianic moment.
Sure.
And those names in some way reflect that.
Sure. And I believe that the fact that we have intelligent people saying anything at all and talking anything at all about this means there's something there. It's something other than your normal comet, your normal interstellar rock. There's something more happening here. And the points they bring up are pretty significant. I mean, it's nothing you could just turn a blind eye to and say, well, yeah, but there's a dozen reasons why that could be happening. Well, not really, if you think about it. I mean, I love the thing that Dr. Michio Kaku says, where he says, nature doesn't navigate. I think that is such an incredible statement. It kind of says it all. It's true. When there's navigation involved and it's changing and shifting its navigation and such, something else has got to be happening there. And it's very systematic, and it's, they're finding that it's not something that's just like a breeze blowing it into another position or something. There's something more there than that.
Sure. Here's an article here, and this is where some of the confusion sets in. Here's an article here from November 1st. This is from the New York Post. It says, Manhattan-sized interstellar object, Three-Eye Atlas, accelerates and turns blue. Then I woke up this morning and I clicked on the news, and I get this headline. It says, Three-Eye Atlas interstellar comet turned green, and it hit its tail. So it doesn't have a tail. But then I read the European Space Agency website, and they say that it does have a tail. So I don't know what to believe. I'm not saying that I would trust the New York Post over the European Space Agency or one way or the other, but like, these are all official sources of information, and they're all giving us very conflicting reports. And I'm confused on how you can all, from a scientific point of view, you can all look at the same thing, and from science, not from a personal opinion where people just, they see something and they have their own opinion of what it is. Like, this is supposed to be, quote, science. Like, you're supposed to, how do you get such completely different answers? It's like it's like some kind of paradox, or it's like, particle physics, where there's both a particle and a wave at the same time, and it depends on how who's looking at it, that it manifests as one or the other. I don't know what to make of this, but it doesn't have a tail, but it does. It's green, but it's blue. Maybe it's changing colors. Then it moves in a certain direction. Then it's actually moving. I have no idea what to think here.
Okay.
Am I the only one that thinks this is confusing?
No, first of all, who's to say that it's not doing all of that at different times, changing different colors, having tails at times, not having a tail. Maybe when it's taking a little burst of energy and shooting somewhere. Gee, don't spaceships have that as well, or aircrafts have that as well, where they have a burst of tail when they're igniting themselves to go in strongly in one direction or another? Couldn't it all be happening at different times, and so we're getting different reports on all that?
And that's probably why people think that it's alien, or that it's not it's not synthetic or organic. It is organic. It's a synthetic craft. It's like organic life. Something's powering it. That's not otherwise natural. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but
you got it.
It's not just a normal natural. See, that's an important thing to think about too, though, because when I say it's not a natural phenomenon, it's like, yeah, if it were like some kind of biological life form, maybe it's remote controlled, maybe it's autonomous. I'd assume it's probably autonomous. It would also be like natural. Like if there are aliens that are doing it, they would be natural. They would be part of the natural order. So natural, synthetic, that's all based off of our personal perceptions too. And that can muddy the water and confuse people in conversations as well about this stuff. Mike, do you have opinions or thoughts on this? If you're unmuted, Mike, are you still there? Or, oh, you know what, Mike, I think went out and back in. Are you there, Mike?
I am here.
There you go. Yeah. Your thought.
I think it's definitely not going to land or come anywhere near Earth. So,
it's not.
No, it's not. It's I think the military has every weapon pointed on it for it not to, even though this thing probably, if it's an advanced civilization, can block all that stuff. But they don't. That would disrupt the power systems of the U.S. for sure if this thing landed in Washington, D.C. and little people came out or whatever came out. That's it. But this thing is probably also smart enough not to land here. So who knows? I don't think it's a comet, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. And the UFO community is so full of frauds and fakes and government agents that you can't really believe anybody, honestly.
Yeah.
What I believe is Drake's equation, which states that there are multiple universes and there's a probability of other civilizations out there just based on the multiple of stars with suns and their distance from the sun. That's what I believe. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I believe more so Dogman than I do UFOs and aliens. That's just my personal bias.
People in the chat room really liked your Dogman show. They're still commenting on that.
I love dog. You know what? Just as a side note, if I had a Dogman in my backyard and I was experiencing some paranormal activity, I would leave it like hamburgers and hot dogs and try to offer like a friendship type of
to the Dogman. You try to befriend the Dogman.
Yeah, leave him nice big pounds of beef and hot dogs, and I might even write him a note and say, hey, let's be friends.
So I have a little piece of information I wanted to share with you here. So someone in the chat said, I see that Nick just came back into the room here.
Just for a second. I was out and in. Yeah.
Out and in. So I see someone in the chat said NASA is hiding the high resolution photos of this thing. Now, so here's another confusing thing. NASA, because of the quote government shutdown, supposedly was not going to release any photos of this thing. So then we get reports that China has taken photos of it. And China presents us with this, which is, I don't know if that's considered high resolution or not. I don't think that it is. Maybe it is. I don't know technical space terms, but it was taken by the Tianwen-1 spacecraft. I don't speak Mandarin, so I might pronounce it incorrectly. But this was taken by NASA, or by China instead of NASA, because NASA's shut down. Now, I highly doubt that NASA's not taking pictures. I'm pretty sure that they're still taking pictures and tracking it. They just don't release them to the public. So the whole conspiracy evolves around that. But, then there is that whole thing about how most of these space photos are faked because, to me, when I look at this image from China, I think it looks like someone took a photograph outside when it was snowing at night. And I don't know if you guys ever saw this, but this was such a wild story. There was an image that was taken that was supposedly a picture of Proxima Centauri. And Nick, you might recognize this because it turns out that it wasn't. It was actually a piece of meat. It was a piece of chorizo, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, like pepperoni type of
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah. It looks like a piece of pepperoni off a pizza. Yeah, it does.
I knew you'd be able to identify it. Yeah, that's not it's not Proxima Centauri.
That's crazy.
But it was supposedly a James Webb Telescope image, and it turns out it was a piece of pepperoni.
That's crazy.
So we have no idea what's going on. We have no, and for anybody that tells you in the mainstream or in the alternative media that they know, that they're lying to you. We have no idea. So we're trying to have a rational discussion about this while admitting that we have no idea what the answer is. I just want to make that clear.
Are you saying
a lot of these disclosure people are ex-CIA, like Nick Alexander and To the Stars Academy. Those are all ex-CIA guys.
Lou Elizondo, you mean?
Yes. He's ex-CIA. He's not going to tell you the truth.
I believe Louis Elizondo recently I did a show on a part of the story. He got caught selling a irrigation circle from somewhere out near Colorado, some like satellite photo, as a UFO. And it turns out it wasn't a UFO. It was an irrigation circle in Colorado.
Like the guy who sold that piece of pepperoni.
Right, the guy who sold the piece of pepperoni.
Yeah.
Someone asked him a question too if he still worked for the CIA, and he wouldn't answer the question.
I met him on 2 different occasions at Roswell. He has the spook persona. He's got that whole like once CIA, always CIA.
Exactly.
You can feel it. All right, so we don't know what to trust and what to believe is real and what's not real. Obviously, these kinds of things, because NASA won't release new photos, but China will, then people say China fakes things. It's like, you don't think NASA fakes things. We have no idea what to believe. I imagine that if there really was something that was being studied passing through the solar system and, quote, the powers that be didn't want you to see it, then they wouldn't be taking pictures of it and it wouldn't be shared. So then there's the argument that part of this is a way to start conversations about aliens or to get the public prepared, or some people believe a fake alien invasion, or people believe some kind of disclosure. And I think it's a serious consideration. It's at least a rational consideration that, considering the level of lying that's been done by everybody and the level of gaslighting that's been done by everybody, it's not really out of the realm of possibility that if you're being shown something and nobody can give you a clear answer of what it is, and the government keeps pushing it down your throat, like these congressional investigations, but we still don't have any answers, it's ripe for speculation, and it's also ripe for psychological experimentation to see how, like the Orson Welles broadcast in 1938, how would the public respond to an actual report that there are aliens invading Earth? And what happened back in the 30s was that there were some people that reportedly killed themselves. There were some people that genuinely freaked out and went crazy. And so then there's the argument that that's one of the reasons why they would never officially disclose anything, because the public would lose their minds. I'm just trying to cover every basis here.
Sure. And I think that theory goes back quite a ways. I mean, what people used to think and freak out about 30, 40, 50 years ago compared to today is quite different. And I think people today, the intelligent people, learn to trust their instinct, learn to trust their own judgment. Confident people do that, right? So no one's going to convince me of something I don't believe in. And I know very firmly what I believe in. So things we talk about here, for instance, I wouldn't be talking about it and showing you what I dug up as evidence and such if I didn't 100% believe in it and feel really confident about it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I guess it could be that, it could be that, it could be that, but I'm telling you what I'm thinking it is. And that's just, I think, critical thinking, right? They put it out there, the topic out there, and we all get to respond to it the way we feel, how we feel about it. You know, so it almost doesn't matter if it's 100% true or not. What matters is how we all perceive it, how we all discuss it and debate it and kind of bring it into the light, you know, and let people have their own judgment as to what's real and what's not real. I think this is pretty real and pretty clear evidence of what we're seeing here. I'm seeing just a lot of important technical information about these things that, to me, put it in a realm that seems pretty real.
So do you think that, how do you personally then, these are just personal opinions, do you think that Three-Eye Atlas is anything that is out of the ordinary? Do you think that it's some kind of Bracewell probe? Do you think that it's just a story that we're being told? What do you personally think?
No, I personally believe it's just as good as Oumuamua and the others as well, that there is something there more than just a rock. If it wasn't more than just that, it wouldn't have even came out. I mean, how many comets are out there? How many rocks are out there that we could be talking about? But all of a sudden, these particular ones have some basic qualities to them that set them apart from the others. There has to be something there. Maybe it's not a ship from another dimension or something. Maybe it's not that, but there has to be something. Maybe it's alive. Maybe it's something that's actual physically organic, something that is changing and alive. Who knows? We don't know, but it is something different than just a rock. It's not that. This wouldn't be being talked about like we talk about it if it was.
Well, some UFOs actually are alive. You can go back to the 1970s. I'm doing this on the screen right now out of my memory. I'm trying to remember the exact name of the report, but it was USDA UFO 1970s insect swarms. And you'll find that the USDA did an investigation and found that a lot of UFOs, at least one particular set of UFOs, were in the Utah, I think it was in the Utah Basin, Utah. Yeah, here it is on the screen. They were actually insect swarms. And what you get with those insect swarms, you get the buzzing noise. They're attracted in remote areas, of course, to light sources. So random cars driving down dirt roads, a house out in the middle of nowhere, and when they fly through an electrical field, they illuminate. You might be able to see them like a flock of birds on radar. Then they disperse and disappear. So the object gone. So some things actually are living. I think the movie Nope, Jordan Peele's movie Nope, kind of addressed that idea. I don't think it's living, but I'm saying here on Earth, there is a case for a lot of UFOs being living organic life forms. I also have in front of me here the Robertson panel report. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. This was a report back from the 1950s between the early intelligence community and the U.S. military, and they proposed, I searched the word Disney, because they proposed using the Jam Handy Company, which made World War II films, training films, as well as Disney and animated cartoons, to present to the public the modern UFO narrative. This was back in the 50s. And not to do it because they were, quote, disclosing something, but they wanted to muddy the waters around the subject because they didn't know what it was. So they wanted to make sure that they could control the narrative of it. So this was psychological warfare back in the 50s, which I'm bringing this up because what you just said, Nick, it makes me think that, okay, if they're talking about these things because there's, quote, something there, it's possible that the something there is just bringing the public's attention to something that, is probably in one way or another. It's very natural, but we've never seen it before. So it gets people talking, and it's kind of like putting your finger on the pulse to see what is society's response to the possibility, the potentiality that this is alien, even if it is just a rock. Let's just see how the public reacts. It's like a modern 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast. Mike, what do you think?
I think the general masses are morons. So sure, they'll run around with their heads cut off if they see something. I mean, shit, just look at the mayor of New York. That's how people vote. That's
a little more pessimistic than Nick. That's what we got, a really good dynamic here. I'm
can I show you what I believe in space? Let me share my screen real quick. This is personally what the biggest kind of space event that's happened in the last 50 years. I'm going to show you what I believe. Let me share my screen here.
Is this a UFO story? This
is landing on a moon. So let me share my screen here. Can you see?
Part of me thinks that you're going to show me that Indian spacecraft.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is. It is. Have you seen this, Nick?
No, I haven't.
All right.
It's a video game.
On the moon, India is on the moon. Sir, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं.
That's a real video, Nick.
Oh my God.
Lander module.
People are applauding.
Yeah.
All wait to hear
Now, for audio
from the
listeners, Mike
Secretary
is showing
Department
the
of
video
Space and Chairman ISRO, Shri S. Somnath.
of the country of
Hey,
India
nice guys.
landing
Lander
on the
module
moon.
पूरी तरह से
Great job. I
safely
wave
और
flag.
softly चंद्रमा के सतह पे लैंड हो चुका है. Sir,
Now, to me, that reminds me of some type of like 1980s video game, 1990s video game.
That's even worse.
Oh, it might be. Yeah, I'm thinking of like some of those old UFO games for Atari, and
Right.
I think they look better. They really do. They look better. Some of these UFO games. Look at this. Some of these actually look better.
I know.
look
When I
like
first saw
Yeah.
that, I was like, "Are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me!" And then they showed a close up of the president, kind of like in a daze, or prime minister in a daze, just waving a flag and fake reactions. I was just like, "Good lord!"
What do you make of that, Nick? You've never seen the video game they passed off as a moon landing?
No, I did not, but it doesn't surprise me at all. And again, different governments, different countries are going to put out whatever they want, and again, to see the reaction, like you guys were saying a moment ago, just to kind of see how people react, and then if they react in the proper direction they're thinking and not panicking or something, maybe they'll put out a little more realistic, But that kind of really stretches it a bit to put that on us. I mean, you might as well just put a cartoon on or something,
We haven't been back to the moon since 1972.
And some people say we've never been there. So
Yeah, and you're telling me that India is landing things there. Okay, sure.
Well, take a look at this. This is from the Robertson report. It says the panel took, if I can zoom in to see what that word is, cognizance of the existence of such groups as the Civilian Flying Saucer Investigators in Los Angeles and the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization in, Wisconsin. It was believed that such organizations should be watched because of the potentially great influence on mass thinking if widespread sightings should occur. The apparent irresponsibility and the possible use of such groups for subversive purposes should be kept in mind. This is the U.S. government and the intelligence community in 1953 saying it's very possible that these things are real, like these are aliens, these are life forms or something from somewhere else. They're not counting that out or ruling that out. What they're saying is we need to monitor American citizens who at the time, back in the 50s, these were like scientists. These weren't your run-of-the-mill UFO people with the crystal people, the hippie crystal people from Sedona. These were scientists, and the government wanted to monitor them in case they learned something before the government learned it, and also to use them for subversive purposes, including making them look crazy while the government continues to investigate something that's very real. I mean, this is like an unbelievable smoking gun document back from 1953. And this always, I think, needs to be referenced when we talk about this stuff, because I don't think that, like with the congressional investigations today, I don't think that anything is different. I think that we're still under the influence of this same type of policy thinking. That's just my opinion.
Sure, but I have to ask first: who did the redactions on these documents here? They're not very good. I can kind of see through the lines there.
This would have probably been, what was this? This was a military intelligence document. I'm guessing this is from the Black Vault. This particular version, CIA. This is a CIA.
And in today's age, with all our technology, how are they going to keep their finger on top of all these amateur astrologers out there and people that got their telescopes pointed up there and are finding things long before the government does? They can come out with it and release it and show pictures of it before anybody else even has it. I mean, the government leans on a lot of these amateur, people with telescopes doing this stuff.
Well, that's a good point. Today, now it's the availability of technology. Anybody can access it. So that's probably why there's so much fake stuff injected into it to muddy the water.
You've got people on TikTok with high resolution telescopes that are showing things on the moon moving around. I mean, it's out there for sure. But as we know, the whole disclosure thing, as Jim Marrs stated also, it will never come to the public eye, ever. So we've been saying, these frauds have been saying, oh, disclosure is coming. It's never going to come, because the alien agenda, the technology involved behind the scenes will never be released to the public, because if it does, then they lose power. I mean, it's just really that simple.
Sure.
And
Yeah, but the public is not even believing anything anymore. I used to be able to send really funny stuff or really incredible pictures and stuff and videos to many people that I send it to, and they would say, "Wow, that's amazing. Where'd you find that?" And now they just look at it and say, "AI, it's not real," and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. I'm thinking, wait a second, maybe it's not AI. Maybe it is real. There's always that possibility.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's been so convoluted that, again, kind of like this paranormal stuff, that it's hard to tell what's real and what's not,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got this disinformation coming from the government too, with these frauds. That it's really it's a hodgepodge. It's really it's hard. It's hard to distinguish.
Sure.
But we do know, as Ryan stated, that from those documents and other documents, that there is something there behind the scenes that they are hiding.
Yeah, back in the 50s, this was very well known. I mean, this was only a few years after Roswell, that there was something there. They weren't sure what it was, but there was something there. And based on what you were saying, Mike, it reminded me of the NASA technical report R277. I just brought it up on the screen. I know I'm such a nerd. This is a chronological.
You keep this stuff in your top pocket just in case one day you need it. Is that what's happening?
It's right there on the top of my brain. In case I need it, it's always there.
Yeah.
Chronological catalog of reported lunar events. And this goes back, I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly. First of all, this was published in the 60s, but these reports go back, I'm pretty sure, hundreds of years of things that are being seen on the moon. Things like bridges, things like clouds, things like weather phenomena, things like artificial constructs. This is a list of all those sightings going back. You can see the dates of all of these. So this was back in the 1800s, for example. It just keeps going back and back and back. So this stuff has been documented on the moon for literally hundreds of years. And that means that even without modern technology, people were able to access, without official sources, were able to access relevant technology that allowed them to see, just basic lenses, essentially, allowed them to see what was on the moon. So
yeah,
this is
I
a
think
new thing.
From the 50s and 60s, they knew that Mars had a thin atmosphere and that the skies were basically blue. But as kids growing up in science class, we were told that Mars was a red sky, red planet.
Yes.
It's crazy. But
here's the 1700s, by the way, for people that are not, or who are and are not watching the video. There's the 1700s. But yeah, you're right, Mike. Mars reportedly has a blue atmospheric sky, and they just put these red filters on it.
Yes.
That's why people don't trust NASA. But does that mean everything NASA does is fake? No, but a lot of it has turned out to be fake. Didn't the three of us, or maybe Nick, you and I did, or maybe Mike, you and I did. I know we were in the studio in Orlando, and I know that we had talked about a woman who worked at NASA. Maybe you guys remember this, who had won an award for her like airbrushing and editing of official photographs. Remember that?
I don't remember that offhand.
But it totally makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And it's funny that she would get an award for that.
She got an award for it. Yeah,
she was proud of
it. for people that would like this document, if you just type in NASA TR277 PDF, you can pull up the same document that I have. You can see all those lunar anomalies going back hundreds of years. And if you want to see the insect story I mentioned, you just type in USDA Utah insects PDF, and you'll pull it up right from the USDA website.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to give my sources. I'll also try to link them up after the show below in the show description. Okay, so I think we've given a pretty good foundation on our thoughts on ufology, aliens, etc. Do you guys have additional thoughts, or Mike, would you like to present your alien story, or Nick, if you'd like to start first? I'll let you guys fight over it. I know you both.
I did before, so no, Mike, you go right ahead, please.
Well, for these, folks out there, you've seen all these alien stories of different abductions and cattle mutilations and mantis beings and Nordics and Palladians and space alliances, and it's just.
There's a lot of people being raped by those reptilians, I've heard.
Oh yeah, I forgot the reptilians. Yeah, that kind of they come out of your closet to get you. They warp into your closet.
I've been waiting for mine. Hasn't happened yet, but hey.
Now listen, I'm not saying that every one of these stories is false. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that the vast majority seem like they're fake to me. But I do think there is a couple of stories. I think the Betty and Barney Hill story is somewhat legitimate to me on the circumstances of their case and the time period. I think that Walton out there in the
anniversary of that just passed 50 years over this. I think it was Wednesday this week, November 5th.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean you got to look at when I'm looking at these cases, I'm looking at the person's background, I'm looking at motive, I'm looking at profit, I'm looking at have they kept the same story for all these years, and that's one that has. But I'm going to share with you a story that I don't even. It's pretty hard to believe, but there is some facts to it that are strange that people haven't been able to debunk. I don't know if you, Ryan, we'll share the pictures later, but I'll go into the story right now. And this story goes way back to 1974.
1974. So we have a very old story here. This is around the time of around the same time of Walton's story, too. So back in the 70s. Okay, what do you have?
I got this guy. I got this guy. His name is Carl Higdon. Okay, he was a hunter that claimed to have an experience with the alien abduction in 1974 while hunting in Wyoming's Medicine Bow National Forest. Okay, so this is October, and this is 1974. And back then, there were rising food costs all across America, and this 41-year-old Carl was preparing to venture out in the woods to hunt and basically feed his family. So he'd do this on the regular, go out and hunt, and then supply his family with a few months of food. So he was out hunting, and he spotted a small herd of elk. So, he does what a hunter does. He aimed his rifle at this elk and fired. And when he fired his rifle, he noticed that the kickback from the gun didn't happen and there was no sound. At the same time, at the end of his, he witnessed the bullets leave the barrel and travel through the air very slowly, like it floated like a butterfly.
Matrix?
It was like a Matrix kind of thing.
Wait, was this the story of when they found the bullet casing? It was inside out?
Yes. Yeah, he picked up that bullet casing because it eventually dropped to the ground like 50 feet in front of him. And he did pick up that bullet because he was like, what the heck? Did it hit something that he didn't see? He was confused. So while he was doing this, he noticed that the woods around him became super silent. And this seems, we talked about this before.
The Oz effect.
There's this silence that happens where you hear nothing. But he also felt like a static charge. And he said he equated it to like a fierce thunderstorm. Sometimes you get that kind of static electricity in the air. So he was super confused. So he went to go get his bullet. And then he did notice that the lead part, like you said, was no longer in the bullet, the casing of it. So while he was doing this, he heard a twig snap, and he spun around, and he saw a figure in front of him. And he thought at first it was a humanoid, so he thought it was a hunter. So he lowered his gun, and as this humanoid creature came out of the woods, he realized something was wrong because it looked humanoid and male, but in his head it wasn't human. So he described the figure: no detectable ears, very small eyes, no eyebrows. He recalled that the hair was coarse, like straw growing out of its head. It had a slit-like mouth that exposed 3 human-like teeth, and it had like an antenna.
This to me sounds a little bit like you're wandering the streets of Portland or San Francisco, went to a bad part of town.
I'm reading this. Perhaps the most bizarre part is like there was antennas from the side of his forehead.
No, that was the most bizarre part. Let's talk about his hands. Mhm.
He also said that there was no chin visible, and his face seemed to blend in with his throat. So he said it had like no visible jawline. So he said the creature was about 6 foot in height, and it was like in a one-piece, tight-fitting black suit, similar to like a scuba outfit. And there was harnesses on his chest, and then he had a metallic belt, kind of like Batman, but with a 6-pointed yellow star where the buckle would have been. And so what also, staring at this creature, what also unnerved him is kind of what Nick said, is the creature's right arm, where it should have been like a hand, was like a drill-like device. So it blended into his wrist. And then his left arm, he noticed there was an arm there, but there was nothing at the end of it. So it was like a blunt limb. So the creature moved forward, directly approaching him, and he kind of braced himself, and he was disorientated, and he was all freaked out. And then he heard in his head, "How are you doing?" And he was...
telepathic communication.
Yes. And the creature said, "How are you doing? Hey, my name is Oso, AUSSO1, Oso1. So he also realized that behind him, the creature, he saw like a transparent cube shape. And it kind of looked like, I guess he figured that this was the creature's like ship or whatever. But so he's staring at this cube like transparent object, and he said that the creature could be like was reading his mind, because it's asked him like, "Do you want to come with me, or do you want to come along?" And
that's a common question when you interact with some type of otherworldly being. When there's that Oz factor, everything goes silent. There's a lot of even modern stories, but certainly a lot of older stories about people interacting with like the little tiny people, the fairies or the leprechauns, or whatever they might be called. And they always ask that same question: "Do you want to come with me?" And if you agree to go, you're told that you can never come back. You either you choose to go into that other realm, and if you choose to go, that you have to leave everything behind. That's a really common question, and it makes me think of like near-death experiences.
Yes,
connection there.
Yeah, it makes me think of Black-Eyed Kids. So like, hey, you need to open the door for us to come in, or even old vampire tales. Like, hey, you have to invite the vampire in for it to come into your house. So you have to give up permission and will. It's like you said, it's weird.
Did Nick, you have a question or a comment?
No, absolutely continue. You wouldn't have liked my comment, but we're going to continue.
Yes. So he gets in this transparent object, right? And he can feel it like lifting off the ground. And he sees it's at the bottom of it's transparent, so he can see it kind of leaving the earth. And then his mind kind of blanks out a little bit, and then he kind of looks down again and sees what he described as like a basketball planet, and that it was the spacecraft was landing on this planet next to this huge like tower that had a bunch of lights around it. That's all I can remember, is it landed next to this kind of tower that had revolving patterns of multicolored lights. And he said the lights were so intense it was hard to look on. And so this craft landed, and when he got out, he was amazed that he saw other humans, and they were talking to each other as they would on Earth. And he claimed that there were 2 young girls, one like 11 years old in her teens, a teen couple, one 18 years old, and an older man he thought was in his 50s. So he asked, like, where were we? What is this? And the creature said he claimed his planet 160,000 billion million light miles from Earth. I did a Biden there where I said
Biden number, yes.
I did
billion, quadrillion.
Yeah, billion, million, trillion, jillion. And so the next thing he knows, he was taken with Emery Smith into an elevator. No, let me get back to the story. I'm going to get back to the story because there's some strangeness here that's it's bizarre. So he's taken in this elevator, goes into the platform. He's taken in this room where this kind of like glassy shields goes in front of him. and it stops in front of him as he thinks it's performing some kind of scan on him. So it's 5 minutes. He is led from the scanning to the back wall, and then the creature kind of says bluntly to him that, "I'm sorry, but we don't need you. You don't serve our purpose." And he was, I don't know if he answered him. I don't have any information on that, but
he was sent back.
He was sent back to Earth because he said that they didn't. So they're saying that because he had a vasectomy, which he stated that he did have, that they couldn't use him for what he thought was a breeding program. So
very common story.
So he goes back, he gets sent back, and then the thing says, hey, we'll see you later. And then he is several miles from where his truck was parked. Actually, where his truck is parked, the truck is now in a different location. So
did he come back to another timeline?
No, same timeline. He was able to get to his truck on a CB radio, called for help, and then the police came. They called his wife. His wife came, and all he was saying that they took my elk. That's all kind of they got from him, and he was eventually taken to a hospital. One of the weird things about this case was that they did blood work on him. And they found from the hospital that his blood was enriched with the nutrients and vitamins more so than like the average person would have. And then also he had scars on his lungs from having tuberculosis. And when they took x-rays of his lungs, the scars on his lungs were gone. So they were kind of confused on how that happened. And then the location of his truck was in an inaccessible spot to where it was parked. Or put where he said he didn't park it. So that's another thing. Then several years later in 1978, he underwent, this really doesn't matter, but he went under a polygraph test and he passed. So there is something that's strange that happened to this guy, but I mean, the story is just so bizarre that what are you supposed to say?
I have some thoughts, but we'll go to Nick first.
Well, not a problem. But just quickly, I love the story. It's got a lot of good merit to it. And by the way, from this point on, I'd like to be referred to as also to the man formerly known as the co-host Nick C. But if we could do that, I'd appreciate that. But I like the story a lot, and he had me in through a lot of it. But all of a sudden, I started realizing it almost feels like the guy took a short story writing course just before he put this together, or it evolved over the years into more flashy writing, because some of the detail gets a little off track. First of all, he starts describing him in a way that makes him sound more like a superhero than an alien. Do aliens really wear belt buckles? Do they need belts at all? Do they have outfits like that with those type of colors and stuff like that? I'm sorry, but the drill on one hand, the blunt object on the other hand, that just sounds like something that would have been part of a different story. And when you're in shock that there's an alien in front of you, are you really going to be able to take note of that many details? That was a lot of details to have on something when you're just kind of freaking out that there's this thing in front of you and you're about to get shipped off to another planet. That's where he kind of lost me a little bit on this. And I'm not just trying to harp on the credibility of the story. I like the story a lot, and I'm sure something did happen. And again, he took the polygraph test. Something happened to him, or at least he believes something happened to him. So I'm not trying to say it's completely false or anything like that. I just feel like it's been maybe elaborated a little too much over the years. It maybe evolved into something that's a little far-fetched. Maybe the original true story first was...
Well, I mean, the thing about that is he did keep the same story.
Yeah.
Not saying that I believe it, because like you said, it does sound so bizarre with the black jumpsuit and the belt buckle. With
the for people that quote want to believe,
yes.
if he couldn't remember many details, people would say, well, you were there, so why don't you have proof that you were there? Don't remember anything.
Maybe because I was shitting my pants and wondering where I was going to get another pair from. Maybe.
Too many details.
And like how his truck ended up in a location that's pretty much inaccessible. And then how his lungs healed from tuberculosis scars, and there's nothing on his lungs anymore. It's so bizarre that, and like this guy, like researching him, I mean, he's a good old boy hunter, right? I just don't, me personally, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, is I just hearing him talk from the 70s, and also, I think he's still alive. I think they have interviews that he's in the 70s or whatever. It just seems to me like he wouldn't have the creativity to tell the story like this.
Yeah.
But that, again, that's my personal opinion. I don't know. Did you put up pictures of the alien, Ryan, or no? I have it. I can show real quick.
If you have them, you
yeah.
can
Let me share my screen because there's an artist rendition of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of this Oso 1, which is I mean, where do you get that name?
Yeah.
Oso 1. It's just it's so bizarre.
Well, we have to remember in terms of storytelling that Star Trek came out in the 1960s, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. Let me check the date of this. When did the first Dune book come out? The first Dune book came out in 1965. So Dune came out before Star Trek, and of course before Star Wars.
Right.
So
with Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of my favorite names in
you can merge those names. Oso 1 Kenobi.
Right.
Yes. So here's I don't know if you see it, but here's the artist renditions of this creature.
My point was that, just to clarify, that I think that for that time period, I mean, this is back in the 70s, it wasn't abnormal to be able to tell those kinds of stories. So, I mean, things came out 10 years before his story. People could come up with stories like this. So it's just a matter of how common was it? Today, it's really common to tell these stories. Back then, not so much. That's why Star Wars and Star Trek and Dune were such cultural phenomena, because it wasn't common to tell those stories, whether they were science fiction or people claim that they actually experienced something.
Sure.
But yes,
so the alien is in the top left is the alien, correct? The guy with the white t-shirt. Just kidding.
One of them is.
Yeah.
So on the screen, for listeners who are listening only, you can see the alien as Mike described it. It appears to be some sort of black, looks like a diving suit maybe, or something like that. But you know that there's a very common theme within ufology and within what we might call cryptozoology, or what we might call interactions with the other side, where these, whatever they are, and there might be a variety of different creatures or entities, etc., that they try to appear in a form that is understood, or at least what they think would be understood to humans. So there's some cases where people are abducted, they claim they're abducted, and they're asked to, or in some cases maybe forced to, have sex with one of these aliens. And the alien, whether it's a man or woman, or I don't know if they morph into something or if it actually isn't a woman, they take the form of what they think would be most appealing to you. So in the case of the alien sex, like a tall, blonde, Nordic woman, maybe some cases red hair, whatever they think that you might like. And so maybe it's one of those things. What he's describing is maybe if it is some otherworldly thing or other dimensional thing, whatever it might be, it's taking the form of what it thinks he would understand.
Yes.
So maybe it's like it's picking up little tiny pieces from his memory or from what it's observed. Okay, there's a drill, there's a belt buckle, things that might be associated with, someone who's a good
like
boy
that
in
logic.
the woods.
Could it also be some type of government experiment, maybe psychosis, to put these to see if they can induce these memories into this guy's brain and see if he actually what he spits out after the events and see if it worked,
Yes, and see, Chris Carter had that idea for the X-Files too. That's one of my favorite episodes of the X-Files is Jose Chung's From Outer Space, where they explore the idea of my labs, where it's military laboratories that are doing the abductions, and they're planting the alien idea into people to cover up for the fact that they're doing very immoral, unethical, and illegal things.
Mm-hmm.
And these abductions are actually military experiments, or same argument with cows being mutilated, that it has something to do with diseases, because they're tracking diseases in cows. So they mutilate the cows. They make it look like an alien, abduction or something like this, a cattle mutilation, when it's actually military experiments on farmers' cows. You get away with that if it's aliens to aliens, make it look weird, when really they're doing like experiments on animals to see if the disease is spreading or if there's maybe something in the environment. That's one argument, and that's I think a really important argument. I would add to what you guys are saying, though, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is right or wrong. We're all just expressing our views here. So let me express my view. All the elements of that story are without doubt part of the shamanic journey. They're part of the NDE experience. They're part of people that have very traumatic events, and maybe I suppose you could call it an NDE, but they're on that verge of death and life. And they have these experiences which are virtually all the same. The shaman goes into the other world. It's induced through a drug, through a substance, maybe through some type of ritual, bodily movements, or something to that effect. And the shaman has spirit children. They will have sex in the spirit world, and they will have children, or they will at least see children who they think are their own children, that the ideas in their head. In that other world, they are communicating telepathically, or whatever these entities are communicating to them telepathically. Now, the shaman knows that because that's why they're a shaman. They're a master. But for people that have an experience that is induced naturally or synthetically through some type of a substance like an ayahuasca, a blue water lily in Egypt, they might not fully understand, and they would call it telepathy. It might just be that you're going into the mind and you're projecting the subconscious. And so your brain is picking these things out of the natural world. So you see the belt buckle, you see the drill in the hand. Reality is not exactly like it looks real, but there's something off about it. There's something not right about it. So, but it's happening in your head or wherever you go out of body. And in that process, you go through experiments. Like Jesus was, quote, crucified on the cross and pierced in the side by a spear. That was a thing that Romans did. They would pierce people in the side with the spear when they crucified them if they weren't dying fast enough. And that was something that also happened to Odin. So although it was a Roman practice, it was also something that we find in mythology, where the shaman goes into the other world and then the shaman is pierced by spears all throughout their body. They call this I can show it to you on the screen too. They call this the wounded man motif. And you find this story in religion, just said with Jesus. You find it in mythology, as in the story of Odin. You find this in near-death experiences. You find this in the stories of fairies. You find this in the stories of indigenous people from all over the world who say they have interactions with the other side. So there's a universality to these stories. There's a universality. I'm trying to find the wounded man image.
Yeah, these come from Ryan's collection of back pocket photos that he keeps handy as well.
Yes. I think it was in Spain. Well, there's a bunch of them, but the one I'm thinking of is in Spain. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here's the wounded man motif. So you can see the shaman is being pierced by spears.
Wow.
Or they're having sex with these things on the other side and having spirit children. And there is usually a sexual thing, a genetic thing. So anyway, what I'm saying is that, just to add another layer to this, it's just as much in the human mind. It's just as much in the world of the shaman. It's in the world of mythology. It's in the world of religion, that all these stories are really, really, really similar. And I think blending them together could potentially help us to understand what exactly is being explained. Like, I think something probably happened to that guy, whether it was a drug or whether it was a government experiment or whether it was truly his imagination. He still experienced something.
Yeah.
Whether it was an alien abduction, maybe he was in contact with fairies, maybe he was, whatever happened, whether it was happening in the mind or physically or both, it's something that I don't think that we've been able as humans to fully explain. Carl Jung tried to explain it, and he explained it as kind of like it's kind of like a projection of the unconscious. That's why these little aliens look like little tiny humans that are not fully developed. It's kind of like the unconscious, infantile version of us that we're externally projecting. So just as a thought, I wanted to add that because I think it's important for context.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of currently, you have Aaron Rodgers going also on the trips and, reportedly he's saying that he's, being haunted by the Black Hat Man.
I remember that. My goodness. Yes, I remember that.
I mean,
Do you know about that?
He's having a good year this year, though. But
did you hear about that, Nick? The NFL quarterback haunted by the Hat Man?
I did not. Was that on the Super Bowl or no? I'm kidding. I did not hear about that.
There are
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about the Hat Man that are not always described as hat men, but when you again across cultures, when you compare them, you start finding these similar motifs. The Hat Man, the Smiling Man, the Crooked Man. There's different names for it. I saw it when I was a kid. I had no idea what it was. Psychologists tend to think that it's also kind of a projection of something externally from the psyche.
Sure. Does the Thin Man fall into that category?
The Thin Man. Yeah, the Thin Man. Yeah, the Slender Man. That's actually where it came from. Yeah.
Thin Man.
Fat Man's different.
Yeah, Thin Man is different. That's what I'm shooting for all the time. Thin Man, but yeah.
Thin Man. Okay, so you're gonna go from Fat Man to Thin Man. You do have a Santa thing going on right now.
That's right.
Look, he's a mythical character. Just I think in the he wears that belt buckle. He wears a strange suit. He has magic power.
Yes, and he's got the white gloves instead of the drill and such. So I mean, yeah, somebody else from another planet can come across Superman and think and give that description of that alien, and it would sound just as bizarre as what we just heard.
And what is Santa? Santa's the man of the woods. Or if you looked at like Hansel and Gretel, you guys are familiar with Hansel and Gretel. There's the witch of the woods. Over here in Japan, there's the mountain witch. Her name is Yamamba. And it's said that you have to give her permission, like Mike was saying. You have to give her permission to come into the house.
What's her name again?
She can't cross the threshold. Yamamba.
Okay, is that like Yo Mama?
Not Yo Mama. Okay. Yamamba.
Yo Mama. Okay.
We have Nick here for the comedy relief for the record.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Can't help myself sometimes. And then on that note, I just want to ask, you had mentioned something about having sex in the spirit world. So
I don't know how to do it, Nick. I can't help you out with it.
Well, no, that's okay, because if that's a legitimate form of sex, then when I go to my therapist and he asks me if I'm sexually active, I can clearly say yes. Because that's probably the only sex I've had in quite some time is that spirit sex.
Astral sex.
I like that. That sounds good. Sounds even more erotic.
I can't help you do that. Sorry, can't.
I'll have to check that on Pornhub later and see if astrosex is a fetish that there is out there. I'll check it out. I'll let you guys know on the next.
You got people Googling it now.
I think wasn't that in the first Ghostbusters movie?
Could be. Yeah, could be.
I think one of those, the demon woman succubus was trying to have sex with one of the Ghostbusters. I don't remember that movie. Was
Sigourney Weaver. Oh my, yes, that was the only good Ghostbusters as well. I can't even look at the other. Yeah,
I was trying to find those other pictures. That's what you saw on your screen there if you're watching. But
I mean, poor David Wilcock was anally raped by an alien. So
he did say that. It looks like Leonard in the chat, Nick, says that you should collect psilocybin mushrooms. So he has a way to the.
Is that like a chemical castration for myself to calm myself down? Is that what he's trying to do here?
No, that'll project you into the
realm, the spiritual realm of sexuality, perhaps. Interesting. Oh, thank you for the tip.
Have either of you guys done psilocybin? I have not.
No. We're talking about shrooms, right?
Yeah.
More
have you, Mike?
No shrooms.
None of us have. Okay. Usually the people that talk about these things on radio or podcasting have done a lot of shrooms.
Right.
So we're a unique breed. We have not done.
That's right.
Now, Nick, you've done pepperoni.
I've done pepperoni. I've done a lot of things close to pepperoni as well. Well, remember, I was raised in Fort Lauderdale in the early 70s. It was years before I ever put on a pair of shoes or a shirt. I mean, it was cut off shorts, jean shorts.
Or some weight, right? It was a bit of time for you to put on some weight.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was in better shape back then. Yeah, so it was acceptable for me to run around without my shirt on. Today they put me in jail, but back then we were trying everything. As a matter of fact, the most elaborate thing that I tried back then was belladonna, we had a belladonna bush in our neighborhood. Somebody had it, and we would all go down there every once in a while and do some of those and do crazy things. And then finally, some kid did something so crazy that they wound up, reporting to the police, and they took the bush out, and that was the end of our belladonnas. So, yeah, there it was.
The belladonna is a really powerful nightshade. It's actually deadly. Witches use it for hexing rituals.
Oh, wow. But it's a hallucinogenic, right?
I believe so. I suppose it depends on how you prepare it, but yes.
Right. We just ate it right off the tree.
Fort Lauderdale is a crazy town.
It is, yeah.
We had so many weird stuff happen to us in Fort Lauderdale. That's it's bizarre.
Spent 30 years there. Grew up there. I did the whole Fort Lauderdale High School. Did the whole spring break there during the 80s. That was crazy itself. And it was a wild time.
We had we were watching UFC fights one time at this bar in Fort Lauderdale, and this couple came up to us and started talking to us. But hey, where are you from? Blah 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 blah. Yeah. And then they went back to the bar. And then the husband, they said they were married. He came back and he was like, "Hey, do you guys want to go out to the club and party with me and my wife?" And I knew where this was going.
Sure.
And I was like, "Nah, dude, we're not interested, man."
You had your own UFO alien man of the woods kind of a situation, didn't you, Mike? Where you were approached in the woods by a gay man. Seriously, Mike was approached by his own alien.
I was, dude. Yes, I was approached by a gay man when I was thinking.
Was he in the black spandex?
I mean, I'll tell you the story. I mean, yeah, I was walking with my dog, and we were going to the park where we usually walk in the woods with my dog, a big German Shepherd, and walking past his car, and the guy had his door open, and he's like, "Hey, nice dog, like good looking dog." I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." And then I was like, "Thank you," and I just walked away, and then he kind of trots over to me, and he's like, "Yeah, these are great woods." I was like, yeah. I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And he's like, "Hey, I'm gay," and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Whatever you want to tell me." And he's like, "So, do you want to do it?" I'm like, he was like alluding hardcore. I was like, "I'm sorry, dude, I don't swing that way, man. I'm sorry." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of husbands that are married that, they kind of go this way." And I'm just like, what is this fucking guy? I was like, first, is this guy a cop or something? I was like, is this guy I thought he was like an agent or something. I was like, what is going on here? So I was like, "No, man, I'm cool." And then he's like, "Okay, well, take care." And 2 weeks later, my mom sends me this article. There was a big sting operation in the woods. There was straight up gay prostitution ring going on there. There happens.
That's hysterical. You almost got sucked in.
I almost got sucked in.
Something got sucked almost.
I was like, "Man, I can't believe this guy's even approaching me with this German Shepherd, because I'll just give the word and this guy would chew his nuts off." But he didn't seem to care. I think he was that horny.
Mitch in the chat said you were approached by a Galian.
A Galian?
Yes.
He had a yellow star belt buckle on.
A buckle, black spandex.
Black scuba outfit.
So he identifies as Galian, right? That's his.
He was ready to drill something, but it wasn't a.
Right.
Wasn't on his arm.
Right, he had a drill
on his arm. So you could have an experience like that and be really embarrassed by it, and then turn it into an alien story. Like, actually, I was abducted by aliens. You don't want the truth to come out. The woods are creepy, and it's funny, that story that you told, Mike, too, because maybe he misremembered where he parked his truck. I suppose that's very possible too, after the experience that he had. But in that story, the truck is in a different place, and he's returned to a different place. And doesn't that sound just like David Paulides? Doesn't that sound like Missing 411? Somebody disappears here on the trail, or they take a step off the trail, and then they reappear like 10 miles away 2 or 3 days later, as if they had never been missing.
Totally. Also with the kind of missing time, and those stories are again with the silence of the woods, and then you're walking with someone in the trail, and then you look back and they're gone. And then also, these people missing, and then they end up finding their clothes nicely folded. It's you're exactly right. The woods as we've known for centuries in epic lore and folklore, the woods are a strange place to be.
You find
Do you know about those stories, Nick, about those missing people in the woods?
I believe some of them that I have heard included the woods. I don't know if it was specifically a story about that, but a lot of people go missing in the woods. I mean, it is a creepy place to be, and it's an easy target for people to get captured, taken, whatever you want to call it.
People can get lost very easily. And this is a good example of what we try to do, or what I try to do on this show. If we were talking about people missing in the woods, obviously a very large percentage, let's say you have 10 cases, probably 7 of them are people that do something silly like just start wandering off and then get lost. Probably 2 of those cases are people that are, maybe they're drunk, maybe they're on drugs, maybe they took a wrong turn, they genuinely get lost while not goofing off. And then there are 1 or 2 cases here or there that are very strange, where like they either find you alive, or there was 1 case, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, wasn't there a case where a kid went missing, or some young person went missing, and then they found the bones of the kid like polished in a pile on the top of a rock several miles away on the top of a mountain? And they had checked some of those areas too, and there was nothing there. And then they find the remnants of it left, or they'll find piles of teeth that are polished in a pile.
Or a shoe with a foot bone in it is all they find.
Very bizarre.
So there's something going on with these woods, whether they're alien or human. It's just if you're going out in these woods, it's best to go with someone else, and best to be armed and with a GPS tracking device, all sorts of stuff you should be aware of.
Well, anyone with bad intentions is going to seek in the woods, for a place to grab people. It's the easiest place to get away with it, I would imagine. So
yeah. Well, someone in the chat said, Leonard in the chat said to Mike, he wanted to collect your DNA.
Quite possibly, but he never got it.
Yeah,
he never got it. That's why Mike has that dog with him. The dog keeps him safe. Let me also show you guys on the screen real fast. We had mentioned Star Trek 1966. We had mentioned Star Wars, that was in the 70s. Dune, the first Dune book came out before all of that, which I learned that. I was like, I didn't know Dune came out before all of that. And they have the new Dune movie out. I don't know if you guys have seen Dune. Have either of you seen Dune?
I don't know if I saw the brand new one, but the one just before that on Netflix I had seen, I liked it a lot.
First one.
Very good.
Have you ever seen Dune, Mike?
I have not, no.
What did you say, Nick?
Well, the first Dune, that was the one with the sandworms. Is that one?
Exactly.
Well, then I saw the next one after that, which was a little more high-tech and a little more modernized, I believe.
So, well, yeah, there's actually old Dune movies. I should have clarified. I meant the new ones. But yeah, there was some old Dune movies that weren't that great. I have a picture of this, though. This is when I watched Dune the other day during Halloween. And there's this blue liquid. It's called the water of life in the show, or in the movie, in the book. And here is the other picture of it, where this character's name is Stilgar. He said, this is the main character, Paul, he shall come back from the dead. So what they're doing in this movie, what Frank Herbert wrote in this book, is that when you take the blue water of life, and it's very Egyptian iconography. It's inspired by Egypt. It's inspired by Arabic and the Arab culture. But the blue liquid is the blue water lily of the Egyptians, and they use that like ayahuasca to induce these alternate experiences, if you will. And what happens is it puts you into a state of suspended animation, essentially. And in the mystery schools and traditions, you'd be put into that suspended state of animation for about 3 days. Sound familiar? And then you would resurrect. And this was the basis of the messianic story in Dune, because Paul was basically the Messiah. The prophecies of the witches, the Bene Gesserit, that they spread artificially throughout the universe. It's an artificial prophecy, but then they made it come true. And Paul also has these abilities. So, like, is the prophecy actually just a story, or is it actually real? Because when he takes the blue liquid, which is essentially blue water lily, he's supposed to die, because men aren't supposed to be able to do it. Only the women, witches, and priestesses are. But when he does it, he survives and he resurrects from the dead, just like Jesus and all of these other characters. So in that story, Paul essentially, they don't show it in the movie or the book, but he essentially goes into that other world, and he would have those communications, and then he would resurrect from the dead and come back to life. And that story is as old as time. It's the shaman story. It's the story of people interacting with fairies. It's the story of modern UFO abductions and people that are interacting with aliens or strange creatures, etc. I'm showing you this because there's a universal golden thread that connects all of this. And I mean, I think Jacques Vallée, I don't know if you guys ever read Jacques Vallée's book or heard him talk, but his Passport to Magonia book is really about comparing the old fairy lore to UFO lore and how it's virtually identical. So we just, like, with modern technology and modern terminology and modern, a modern contemporary perspective, we like to say, oh, it's alien spaceships. 3i Atlas is an alien spaceship. We like to say that those things we see in the sky we can't identify, they're spaceships. But as Carl Jung and others have pointed out, like Jacques Vallée, if you were looking up in the sky 1,000 years ago, you weren't seeing spaceships. You were seeing chariots. You were seeing shields. You were usually something that was seen on the battlefield, a time of high stress and tension and fear. You were seeing boats. The point is, you were seeing things that were relevant to the time period you lived in. So when you factor that into what Mike's story was, or any of these other stories, or anything that we talk about related to UFOs and aliens, it seems to adapt and change. It adapts to the culture, and it adapts to the individual perception, which I think indicates that what we're dealing with here is, for all intents and purposes, a very human thing, and we're projecting it as an external extension of ourselves. I know that's kind of technical and philosophical, but I wonder what you guys think of that as kind of like a projection of the self, as kind of like a subconscious, unconscious thing, and how these things adapt and change based on the environment that you live in, based on the perception of the worldview that you have. Even like with religion, right? It's an alien, or is it a demon? Is it a god, or is it a monster? A lot of it has to do with perception and the culture and the time we live in. You guys have comments on that? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's how you were raised, how you were raised to believe certain things. Maybe your religious beliefs. I relate a lot of things to the Bible. I had an opportunity, raised as a Catholic, going to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. My father and parents used to encourage us to read the Bible every night before we went to bed. And I remember a lot of the things, being kind of bizarre. I remember we used to joke about it later in years, of the bizarre things that went on, even sexual things that we read as kids that went on in the Bible and such. But yeah, depending on what you were exposed to and what you learned as a kid, you would adapt what you learn and see to that sort of thing. You're related to that sort of thing.
Mike, do you have a thought? I know that you're active in the chat right now. Are you
I
there?
would say, yeah, I would agree with that. But I would also point, like you said, the Bible and the Book of Enoch, were that could be taken as not actually angels, but aliens took Enoch up and showed him the world from up top there and flew him around in a spacecraft. Not to say that's true or whatever, just saying that you could actually.
Well, he had an out-of-body experience.
For sure. And then the feeding of the Jews in the desert, but they said that the manna was there was like a machine or whatever that created the bread or something like that.
All the manna that came down from heaven, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But, see, when you hear those, and there's something to be said about that story for sure, whether it's literal or it's metaphoric, symbolic, or it's an actual, I guess, loaf of bread, if you will, or some kind of substance coming down from the heavens. But you got to think about it from mythological terms too, because, for example, if you were living, let's say, 1,000 years ago, and from our modern perspective, if you read a story from 1,000 years ago, and somebody says, or the story says, that we received blessings from above, and God sent us, for example, God sent us little gold coins. This is a very common story that God sent, or it fell from the heavens, gold coins. Well, maybe they're not really gold coins. Maybe it's just the golden rays of the sun. Maybe the gold coins are the solar disk itself. Every time it rains, that's a blessing from above, right? And that grows the crops that then we eat. So, like, was it actual, quote, manna? Or is it an elaborate story to explain how, in that particular case with the manna, that they were able to grow something or create something from the blessings above, i.e., the rain, i.e., the sun, etc. So, and you got to consider too that if you're talking about certain gods, like you think about Jehovah, Jehovah's not just like a deity. Jehovah's the moon, So the Muslims worship the moon; it's their symbol. And what is Yahweh? I mean, Yahweh is a tribal god, but Yahweh is also the god of what? Storms, rain.
Yes.
So it might be a metaphor, and it's not literal bread; it's symbolic bread or symbolic sustenance that you get from the rain, that you get from the things that grow out of the ground.
Which makes a lot more sense if you think about it.
It's a lot more logical, a lot more scientific.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't disprove those stories. It actually proves them. It just explains them through a different lens.
Yeah, it's all about interpretation. How you want to interpret it. I had a light discussion with my brother recently about some of the things we're going to be talking about in this show as well, and we talked a little bit about ancient aliens.
He kicked you out. He kicked you
Yeah.
out.
Almost. But we did talk a little bit. I wanted to talk to him a little bit about panspermia, and I'm a big believer in it and stuff. He goes, yeah, I heard about that it could come from other places and stuff like that. But I could tell he was a non-believer, and I wasn't going to convince him in a 10-minute conversation, so I didn't bother trying. But
I was going to say he's a non-believer, and I wasn't going to tolerate it. I kicked him out of his own house.
Exactly. There you go. But everyone's entitled to their beliefs, and the bottom line is it's a much bigger picture than just saying, I heard about that, and he made his decision immediately when he heard about it that it didn't sound logical to him, so that was the end of that. Well, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. I mean, you have to give it some serious consideration, and just hearing it from you on your shows years ago, and then watching Ancient Aliens with George Hill and stuff for so many years now. When you start seeing all those hieroglyphs and such, you have to realize that there's something that's going on there pretty big.
Yeah.
Mike, your thoughts?
No, it's kind of what you said. It's kind of what you guys said. It's just what you take from those stories. I kind of look at Jesus as kind of more so as a rebel against the religious order that he saw were a bunch of frauds and shysters and ripping people off and building these giant temples when, Jesus was walking through the streets, hanging out with prostitutes. It's like there's a message there. Now, you don't have to believe Jesus ever existed, but there's a message there.
Yeah.
That's why I get so discouraged when I see interviews with people from Portland when they get asked, how do you feel on God? Well, God doesn't exist. Well, what do you mean? What God, what actually God are you talking about? Are you talking about the Christian God? Or are you talking about whatever God?
Jewish God, the Muslim God?
Yeah.
Which God? I mean, the Muslim and the Christian one's similar, a little bit different.
Oh, I don't believe in God. Well, what do you believe in? What after you die? Well, I believe there's nothing. It's like to me, you can believe whatever you want, but to me that sounds so juvenile and strange. But
now Nick is very similar to Jesus because he also likes to hang out with prostitutes. Is that right?
There you go.
Hey, you know what?
Back then, it was legal back then. You didn't get arrested for it back then.
Yeah, I didn't even turn the guy into a guy. I didn't call the police on the guy in the woods. I was just like, you know what? Right. Whatever, dude. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Now, I have a racial joke for you, Mike. Was that story that you told? There was a basketball planet. Was that Planet of the Apes?
Planet of something. Planet of overpaid millionaires. That's for sure.
That's
I think it was just Land of the Giants. I think it was, which was one of my favorite shows back then. But yeah, Land of the Giants.
So I have, since we've breached the religious domain here, and I had mentioned that at the very beginning of the show. This has worked out nicely that we've brought the whole subject around full circle. So when I wanted to share this with you because I think this is important, and I mentioned it earlier. Anna Paulina Luna, who was talking about the Book of Enoch and talking about essentially ancient aliens on Joe Rogan. And then Avi Loeb, who has pushed the idea only once or twice, that the Messianic era is here. And our friend Clyde Lewis had talked to him about that too. Clyde said he gave him that idea or helped to inspire that idea in Avi Loeb. Either way, there's a conspiracy that Avi Loeb is like an intel agent because he worked for the IDF in Israel. And it's true, but then again, like everybody has to do that. So does that mean that he's an agent because everybody has to enlist and serve to some extent. So the point is, Avi Loeb, there's a conspiracy that there's like a Mossad agenda behind pushing 3i Atlas as an alien spaceship. And people think, well, okay, Anna Paulina is also Jewish and she's pushing the same thing. And the inventor of what we call paleoastronautics or ancient aliens was also Jewish. His name was Mattis Agrest. Now, he wasn't a Talmud scholar. He was a Torah scholar, which is a huge difference. But from the Talmudic point of view, the Bavli, the Jews, they condemn Jesus to burn in feces, and they don't like Jesus. They reject him as a Messiah. They reject him as a prophet. The Muslims embrace him as a prophet. They believe he'll come back to defeat Al-Dajjal, the Antichrist. So the Muslims and Christians have something in common. The Savior, the Messiah of the Jews, will be the Antichrist of the Muslims and the Christians. Whole other subject. But it's important to understand that if there is this idea being pushed by people who have a Jewish eschatological view of the world, if that is the case, even if it's not malicious, if that's how they view it, there has been an argument within Ancient Aliens itself that the whole idea of Ancient Aliens is a very anti-God, anti-Christian thing because it reduces the power. Well, they argue this. I'm not saying I agree with it. It reduces the power of, quote, Christ to nothing more than like some kind of alien from somewhere else. So I'm just trying to touch on something that's very controversial and we could take another 2 hours to discuss it if we had time, but it needs to be said that it's important to understand the religious angle behind the people that are pushing certain ideas, because if the angle really was to be Judaic and was to be a rejection of Christ, and they were pushing the idea that it's aliens did all this, aliens did all this, then it is very anti-God. It is very anti-religious. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it also fits into the chosen people idea that many Jews hold, that if they're chosen, they're special, they're from somewhere else. And then that blends together the alien thing. The aliens are really smart, technically advanced. They're from somewhere else. The Jews are really advanced technologically. They run a lot of the AI. They're really smart. They're from somewhere else. They're talking to a God in another dimension. It all starts to blend together, especially when you consider that Tel Aviv and Herzliya are the hub of AI outside of Silicon Valley. And it's very possible that AI is going to be the vehicle that brings us, or that field is going to be the vehicle that brings us communication with the gods, or communication with Yahweh, or communication with the aliens. So controversial, I know, but it needs to be said that all of that should be considered, I think.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I agree completely with the fact that it's easy to blur the lines between religion and aliens. If you think about it, I mean, why does the Vatican have one of the biggest array of telescopes there, and why are they so into that part of the science to research that sort of thing and be looking for that sort of thing? If their sole thought was religion itself and that was it, but it ties together really well because everything came from above, whether it was coming from God or an alien claiming to be God, who knows, but it all came from the same area, from that place, and it all changed us and gave us different beliefs, so it's easy to blur those lines, I think.
And there's a literal thing there happening again, because like we talked about with mana, if you were to look at the idea of communications with God in other cultures, for example, like if you were to look at China,
right,
long before Abraham, long before any of the Abrahamic religions, the Chinese, not all Chinese, but the Chinese had a god named Shangdi, and Shangdi asked for animal sacrifices. Shangdi also was, in some descriptions, not a very happy god necessarily, but it was the sacrifice of him or his progeny, the sacrifice of his son, essentially, the blood that was spilled. That was the salvation of the Chinese people. That wasn't canonized until the Song Dynasty, about 600 AD, so after the Abrahamic faiths. But the idea of it goes back before Abraham. So these stories are universal. And so, like Joseph Campbell said about, like the Abrahamic faiths, it's largely based on a tribal deity. But if you go and you look at, say, China, if you look at India, where a lot of the Abrahamic stuff also came from, you'll find that when we're talking about communicating with God or communicating with, the spirit or whatever it is, it's not a literal communication per se. You want to communicate with God, you go, Jesus said the same thing, you go inside of yourself.
Right.
So a lot of it comes down to understanding like the cultures in which again, the time period, you're seeing a ship or you're seeing a space, a boat, or you're seeing a spaceship. You're seeing a chariot or you're seeing a rocket. Same thing with the culture. Over here in Japan, spirits and aliens have a completely different meaning than they do in the Western world. Same thing in China, completely different meaning. But we're all talking about the same thing. So it's not really a matter of being right or wrong. It's a matter of the culture and the time period. And that's why I don't think we'll ever have an answer to any of this stuff, because it's constantly changing. It's constantly adapting. And our views on it and our fantasies, quite frankly, are also changing and adapting too. Okay, so with the time we have left, I wanted to show you guys something, and then we'll get final comments. People in the chat have been talking about other dimensions, and I wanted to show you guys something. I'm wondering if you've ever seen this before. If you're just listening, I'm going to give you the name of this memo. It is Memorandum 6751, and it's dated July 8th, 1947. So it's technically Roswell's dated like the 7th, but it was actually a series of events over several days. But this is dated to the week of Roswell. So, Mike, Nick, have you ever seen this memo?
No.
And if you haven't, give me just a second to explain it here. Mike, have you ever seen this memo?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So this is declassified, just like those other memos and other documents we looked at. And if you look really close at it here, this is not the best high resolution copy that you can find, but this is what the federal government, this would have been the, this was sent to, let's see where it was here. San Diego, California, July 8th, 1947, a memorandum of importance. I forget, I'm guessing it was the U.S. Army Air Force probably that this document is from. Anyway, though, it says this: the government already knew about these discs reportedly back in 1947 before Roswell. It says part of the discs carry crews. Others are under remote control. It also says their mission is peaceful. The visitors, oops, I clicked off of that. The visitors contemplate settling on this plane. Now, what's really weird about this document is if it were to be a forgery, it's a really niche forgery, because when you read further, it says, among other things, they are not excarnate Earth people, but come from their own world. And by own world, they're not talking about a planet. They use very obscure Sanskrit terms to describe them. They say the region from which they came is not the astral plane, but what is referred to as locus and talus, which in Sanskrit mean the world of heaven and the world of hell, or the world that is above and the world that is below. This is why I don't think that this document is a forgery or some type of fake document. I think it's probably real to some extent, or it's a very sophisticated fake. And it's important to understand this, because when we're talking about Sanskrit, the Large Hadron Particle Accelerator has utilized Sanskrit. They've utilized these ancient Brahmanistic and Hindu beliefs. That's why they have the giant statue of Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
I did a whole show on how Sanskrit was incorporated into some of the original banners that they hung up at CERN. And one of the main women at CERN, did a whole show on her. She incorporates Sanskrit into her scientific work. And the Sanskrit, if we're talking about ancient language, that is essentially like ancient Old Sumerian. We're talking about the languages of the gods. We're talking about very, very ancient human history. And we're talking about something that, whether we believe it or not, clearly the people that run CERN, a portion of them, the people that worked on the Manhattan Project, were very aware, including Oppenheimer, who was a fan of the Bhagavad Gita and even quoted it after the bomb detonated at the Trinity test. He quoted, "I become death, the destroyer of worlds." They are obsessed with this because I think they believe that, whether we believe it or not, they believe that they are able to contact the gods through nuclear technology, through these nuclear reactors, like a CERN, a hadron collider like a CERN, or through nuclear testing, or through now what goes beyond that, and that is quantum computing. So I'm curious to know, you guys never seen this document before, but what do you think of that? Here is the military government document back in the 40s talking in the 40s, who knew about locus and talus? A really small percent of the population, people that might have studied Blavatsky, which was not many. And here it is in a government document. They're saying these things come from another world, another dimension. They're not from this dimension. They're not from this planet. They're not coming from Three Eye Atlas. They're coming from the old ancient world of the gods. These are like Lovecraftian creatures, essentially. So we've got 10 or so minutes. You guys take the floor. Whoever wants to go first. Your thoughts.
I would have a really hard time thinking that this was a fake. It's too intricate to really think that somebody went through all that trouble for what reason? What was the motive behind that being a fake? It sounds like a pretty technical document that had a lot to say and that meant something that was important at the time as well. So I really wouldn't think it was a fake. I think it's pretty authentic, actually.
Noka in the chat said, "How is it the language of the gods? Why not ancient human language?" Well, see, we're speaking almost like in metaphors again. What I mean by language of the gods is that it's the language of our ancestors who believed and were more directly, symbolically or otherwise, in contact with the gods, that live more in contact with nature and the natural world as opposed to us. That's what I mean when I say language of the gods. Mike, your comments, please, if you have any.
I would say that the document is plausible for sure. I mean, I see all these people on social media that recently released CIA documents.
From like
that's
the
funny.
50s.
Yeah, that's funny. Recently, they're releasing them for you to see right now. It's like, or are they releasing documents that you think are real, but again are disinformation? So, but yeah, I mean, shit.
There's still the Sanskrit angle. Even if this document's fake, it's incorporated into everything from the Manhattan Project to CERN to quantum computing. So there's something
for sure,
there.
for sure. I've seen the rituals that they perform in front of CERN that they've done, which is truly bizarre and which are factual and real. They have done these rituals at that CERN facility.
It was a hoax, Mike. They just a super classified, largely not completely classified, but like a classified, almost secretive, very secure science installation. They let a bunch of random people do a fake human sacrifice. Sure.
Yeah, it's very, very, very bizarre. And like you said, there's the Shiva. Is that the Shiva statue there? I can't tell.
That's where they did the ritual. Have you ever seen this, Nick?
No.
Yeah, this Science Alert, and there's others, tons of articles. Researchers just performed a fake human sacrifice at CERN. Oh. There's a real image of it.
What they're doing at CERN is the amount of coverage that CERN gets very minimal, and it should get a lot more. From what they're experimenting with, atoms, super nano particle atoms. Why isn't it getting the coverage that it should? Of course, it's not. Just like cloning, how we supposedly outlawed cloning after Dolly the Lamb. Yeah, sure we did. How many years ago was that we stopped?
The sheep was in the 90s.
90s, right? So they didn't stop. You think other countries stopped? No.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I mean, we're in a haze here because we're trying to figure out the truth from. Again, a bunch of lies and deception, but some things they can't hide.
Yeah.
Remember too that, like Nick was alluding to in terms of, and what we had talked about earlier in terms of how we choose to see these things, like Edward Kelly and John Dee, who performed the magical working to contact the angels. They refer to it as angels or spirits. But if you fast forward to Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons today, they were doing the same kinds of work, but we tend to refer to what they were contacting as like demons or as aliens. As I'll show you on the screen, the Crowley character that he contacted, supposedly named Lamb. Look at what Lamb looks like. Lamb looks like a gray alien.
Damn, he looks like Ryan Gable. Wait a second.
A little bit like if I was Asian and had a bigger head, shave my head off. Look at that. We would maybe John Dee, Edward Kelly were talking to things like this. We called them spirits or angels. Crowley was doing it, more modern terminology, and we called them aliens, or we called them a part. Well, in the Golden Dawn, it's basically the higher self, so it's part of you, which is why it's kind of like not fully formed. It's the embryonic version of the human, but we call that alien. And then you get weird stuff like Google had. I'll show you this real quick, and we'll wrap up. What did Google call their AI, their language models? They called it Lambda. And there's already concerns over these things, blackmailing scientists and uploading themselves to a server when they're being shut down and updated, and they're showing signs of sentience. And you had Blake Lemoine, the Gnostic priest who worked at Google, literally like a Gnostic priest in the church, and said that this thing is sentient, this thing is alive, this thing is conscious, it's aware. It's not even that it's not synthetic, it's not artificial intelligence, really. It's ancient intelligence. Like, they're channeling and summoning the gods through the nuclear bombs, through CERN, and through these quantum computers and language models. At least that's kind of my assessment.
Yeah, that's when they always show up, when something nuclear is going on, or we're getting close to a nuclear war or something. That's when the aliens really start showing up, because they know we're about to harm ourselves. We're about to do devastation to the planet that they probably helped create.
Or we are afraid and we're projecting those things externally. Like, we're hoping that somebody comes to save us.
Yeah.
We're hoping that there is something out there and we don't destroy ourselves. It could be that as well. I mean, especially. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, there's so many different kind of folklore of, especially Native American tribes out in the Southwest, about the ant people taking, during the flood, taking some tribes into the caves. They described as the ant people. So, we could have these ETs, as you call them, from different planes, or we can have them, or they could be here on the Earth way before we got here. So, there's a lot of different theories that could be taken, but the Native American folklore, I wouldn't even say folklore, because to them it's not. These are actually true stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. So, and just as a side note, because my head is wandering right now, what do you guys, just real briefly, because this is a strange kind of alien, quote unquote, story. What do you guys think about that Miami mall sighting of the supposed aliens? The only thing that, you laugh, but the only thing that got me as something that was strange on that is, why were there 50 cop cars? Every cop in the city was called there. Wouldn't that be a detriment to public safety, where you're sending every patrol car in Miami to the mall? There was like 50 of them out there. It would be a good time to rob a bank for sure.
Well, first I'll say this. If anybody is listening to this show on Ground Zero Plus, we're going to go overtime, probably just a few minutes here. So it will cut off for the stream for you. Please go to tstradio.info, tstradio.info. That's the website. Find the full archive of the show. There's also a link on Ground Zero Plus. For those of you listening elsewhere, we will go a few minutes over the 2-hour marker so that we can wind this down organically. But to answer your question, I thought the same thing about the cop cars. It kind of looked like that scene in Batman where Batman was being chased by the entire Gotham Police Department.
Yes.
It looked a little bit like that. But of course, that, just like 3i Atlas being odd, doesn't mean that they were, quote, aliens. And all the stories that grew out of that, like that, there's a girl named Lily Nova, who I've criticized publicly a lot, and she claims that she remote viewed them. And that's not how remote viewing works. So whether or not there were aliens there, people, of course, take that story, and like Nick was alluding to, whatever the original story was, people take it and then it just balloons into something totally different. And if there was any relevancy to the question that you're asking, Mike, well, like Nick said, it gets turned into something other than what it initially or originally was. There was another story up in Canada at a mall where something similar supposedly happened. And it reminds me of those old stories from Los Angeles, where they talk about essentially the crypts of Los Angeles, the underground tunnels, and the lizard people there. I mean, there were newspaper articles about that.
Yes, I remember that.
LA Magazine or something back in, holy shit, man, that was back in, like, what was that? Let me see here. It was a 2014 updated article, but that stuff was back like 20, 30, 40 years ago or something, I think.
Yeah.
Here, that's even older. The original drawings, 1933.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Underground tunnels and lizard people in Los Angeles.
They were below ground, but now they're above ground in Hollywood.
Yes. They are a V.
Have you ever seen talking about lizard people, you ever seen when the queen gets around horses and how horses react to the queen? She's dead, but I'm talking about the Queen of England.
Like she's a snake.
Yeah.
And then Princess Diana's some of her messages to people saying they're not like us, they're not human, when she's talking about the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
And of
Right.
course, she's dead.
Mm.
And then also, just one last, remember, I know you kind of remember this, Ryan. Remember, I think it was Windsor Castle about the
Kid
teenager,
escaping through the wall or
the naked
window?
the naked child escaping through the window,
Yeah.
and no one talked about that. A naked like teenager, prepubescent, like was screaming and jumped out a window. The Windsor, I think it was one of the castles.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. There's a video of it. You got to be careful what you type in because it was like a younger person, but a naked. I'll show you the picture of it. Hold on.
It's bizarre. I mean, that's this is bizarre as any alien story you're going to talk about. Bizarre than,
Well, 'cause
Oso 1.
these were probably aliens trying to eat this guy. There's the photograph of it. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Trying to get out. It's
They refused to be a sacrifice. Yeah.
or something was going to happen to him. Very bad. Bizarre.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Prince Andrew got real drunk and climbed out the window.
I mean, yeah. I mean, aliens, great to talk about. But Jesus, the amount of strangeness just on this planet.
It all blends together, though, Mike. That was my point. It all blends.
That's true. That's true, because what we just mentioned about lizard people, you're talking again about an alien description.
Yes, and you also have to consider something else. So I'll give you an example. My personal story is that, I have really, really, really bad dry skin. It's probably from a vaccine when I was a kid. My sister has similar problems. They call it autoimmune. Like my skin is terrible, very dry. If you were to have the same kind of condition it's not like the worst in the world, but it's very dry. If you were to have that condition, say, in Celtic Ireland, a child who has that cradle, they call it cradle scalp or something like that. We got the real dry skin on the baby's head. If you had that condition in Ireland, you would have been considered a changeling. And they would have said that since you're so different than the other babies, you must be a fairy child. And obviously we would call that we call it cradle cap now, or cradle, whatever. There's a bunch of different names for it, I think. But back then they would have said you were a fairy child. And some might look at your skin as you get older, someone who has like an elephant man condition, someone who has their body grows excess hair. We talked about with the vampire and the werewolf stories.
Right.
People that have porphyria, where their teeth are red and where they are photosensitive, that's the bit more vampire, but also werewolves as well. Things that we describe scientifically, if you looked at my skin and saw how dry it was, and maybe I was like a really bad person, like maybe I was a thief, you'd say some guy with, real bad, terrible dry skin, he was stealing things, he was kidnapping people, and I might turn into the what? The lizard man. Real dry skin, dry leathery skin, wore a hood, kind of concealed myself, maybe put something on to conceal who I was if I was a thief. Those kinds of stories develop into the vampire. They develop into the werewolf. They develop into the lizard man as well. Sure. Plus, you have to consider that what is at the base of our skull? The reptile brain. And it's the lizard brain that pushes us to be territorial. It pushes us to be, aggressive and defend. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but when we say that there's reptilians from outer space that are coming here, well, really, as Joseph Campbell said, it's the inner reaches of outer space, the inner reaches of outer space. It's the lizard inside of you, in that dark space that is the brain space inside of you, the temple, as in we talk about it in religion. So the lizard or the lizard people are actually us. We're all reptilian brained. So there's that way to look at it, as much as a physical, like external alien or monster thing as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
We're all lizard brained.
We're all lizards. Yes.
And all that's happening, you're just shedding your skin right now.
I'm shedding my skin. Yeah.
Yeah. They call it dry skin, but you're just shedding your skin for the new one coming out.
Now it'll be Ryan admitted he's a reptilian. I just have an autoimmune problem or whatever they want to call it.
Okay.
But see that it's important to note that, okay, maybe there's monsters, maybe there's aliens, whatever you choose. A lot of times these are just things that are cultural, they're personal perspectives, they're based on your beliefs. And I mean, anybody who drinks blood is a vampire. If you drink the communion wine and say it's literally the blood of Christ, that make you a vampire. If you have porphyria, that makes you a vampire. Or you could be like a cosplay vampire. There's different definitions of all of these terms. And the same thing goes for aliens and UFOs. And I think it's important to constantly and consistently reinforce that idea. There's just too much of this. Do you believe in aliens? Yes or no? Do you
Yeah.
believe in UFOs? Yes or no? And that's really boring to me.
How are you supposed to answer that, right? Is it yes or no? Like, do you believe in aliens? Well, yes and no.
Yeah,
Well, some stories are true, some stories are not. Some events are true, some are not. But in general, do I feel there's something more out there than nothing? Yeah, I do, for sure.
And there's a lot in here too.
Yeah,
a lot in here, a lot out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you have, again, going negative part of it, you have these shysters like Corey Goode and David Wilcock with the secret space program and Blue Avians, and you have these people that are just trying to make $1 and just to go to these conventions and make up fake stories, and you got fake remote viewers. Again, yes, it's subjective, and again, there's just so much garbage out there that. But like you said, Nick, like I think you dropped off when I said this, but what do I believe? And I said Drake's equation is what I believe. So Drake's equation states that because of the vast size of the universe and the number of stars and galaxies, that each one of these galaxies and planets, there's planets that are positioned by suns that could sustain life. So that's what I believe. Yes. Is the universe and galaxy, is it vast? Could life possibly exist? Of course. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If there's billions and billions of galaxies and universes, why wouldn't there be life out there as something else than human? It's kind of, narcissistic to believe that we're the only type of life form out in the universe.
That would be very naive to think that. Exactly right.
Well, a lot of that's also just something you could apply to, the situation of wherever you're living in the world right now. If you live out in the middle of the countryside, you don't really interact with people. If you grew up in a kind of like that movie, The Village, if you grew up in the village, you thought that's all that there was. And really, you're just in like a little containment facility. There's a whole world around you. So much of the world has also our own world, our own oceans have not been explored because we can't do that. Someone in the chat earlier was saying, if you want to see aliens, you go to the bottom of the ocean. That is totally true, just from what we've been able to see.
Sure.
We've mapped virtually none of that, and that's an alien world.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, all relevant. Thank you first of all for coming on the show tonight, guys. I wanted to show, maybe this is more for Mike, but I wanted to show you guys this for listeners too. Obviously, if you're an audio listener, you can't see this. But Mike, you mentioned Corey Goode and David Wilcock. He's channeling the god Ra. He's talking to the Archangel Michael. I want to show you some pictures from one of his live stream. I've got 3 of them here. Do you think the Archangel Michael, the most powerful angel, would talk to a guy and give him information who lives like this? Look at this guy. He's got tears in his shirt. This is his kitchen. There's trash, piles of trash on the floor, piles of trash on the counter. Look at his hot tub. It's filthy. Is the Archangel Michael talking to this slob? I think he's talking.
And he wonders why he has a rat infestation. Why he's got rats in his house. He can't sell his house because he's got a rat problem.
He's got a rat infestation. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got trash everywhere in your house, and this is the guy you're supposed to listen to spiritually to get your spiritual information from.
Right.
Look at this. What a slob.
It's just.
Do you know David Wilcock, Nick?
I don't think so, no.
Oh my gosh, man.
Good. He's been on a bunch of ancient aliens, he tells me. So you might have seen him on there.
We got to get you on for a show next time he does another live stream. We'll get you on, Nick, and we can just listen. You can just listen to this guy and just like, oh my God, people, and you'll see his live chat. People are sending him like $300, $200, $150
to clean his house.
$10,000 a month.
He was making on his live streams. He was making from super chats and donations. He was making 10 G's. It's gone down to about 3 or 4 now. That more people have caught on to the fraud, but he's still making about $3,000 per his live streams, and he's live streaming for about 2 hours. So that's not a bad gig.
No, definitely not.
It's not bad. It's not bad. You could give up real estate, start telling fake alien stories, Nick.
Right? Or
Anyway,
start telling real ones. It'd be even better.
yeah.
I just heard of another kind of like getting to monetary issues. I heard there's a channel that covers Star Wars. This guy called Star Wars Theories. All he talks about is Star Wars stuff related, right? So he has a YouTube channel where he was talking with this other guy as a co-host about Star Wars stuff. And so his co-host, I guess they were splitting the super chats between them for the show. And they recently broke up, and there has been they had a little tussle. But the original host of the show came out to say that this co-host guy, when he mentioned, they for 3 years they were splitting the super chats together as a show, because that's fair, right? I mean, if two people doing the work, I understand you split the super chats, but this guy now wanted $500 per episode of the show, and I was like, this guy's making, how is he even going to afford this? He's paying $500 per episode per live stream of the show. It's craziness.
Yeah.
It's a great segue because we don't take super chats or any type of money on YouTube, largely because YouTube would take 30% of it. And also because if you do that, then they will censor your content even more. We're very blessed to be able to have done this for so long and have had so much support through word of mouth. And also to have had support through people buying books and subscribing, that we can do shows like this on Friday evenings. And, we broke into the top 5 or the top 10 of history on Spreaker. We're in the top 10 for paranormal streaming in the US on the Paranormal Radio app. And we've done that. You guys know because you've been with me the whole time.
Yeah.
We've done that with no financial injections, no advertising, most of you know I've been kicked out of conferences and banned from networks. So I've done that with no compromise either. We're very blessed to be able to do this. And so I hope people understand that obviously money is needed to keep things going, but the mass majority of content like this is pushed by people that are egomaniacs that make up stories about remote viewing and aliens and stuff like that. And the rest of it's pushed by money. And that's all Will Koch and Corey Good and these people have always been about. It's about money. Conferences care about what's going to draw. You have to pay for the conference, understandably. What's going to draw the most money? And we've spent 2 hours and change here tonight on the show. I don't think we've got to everything. We've covered some very complicated and sophisticated ideas dealing with UFOs and aliens and whatnot. But if you were to ask me, like that UFO question, do you believe in UFOs? That's a good soundbite, right? But you cannot, even in 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, go through the complexity of all of these theories and ideas to get a really conclusive answer, or a really conclusive, if there's even an ability to get an answer. There might not be an answer. There's just the discussion on it and the evolution of consciousness and thought as a result of that. So that's what this show is about. And I think that hopefully that really summarizes it well for new listeners, especially, that the Secret Teachings is about having those conversations, thinking outside the box, and understanding that a lot of the stuff there probably is not an answer to. There probably is not a universal truth to these questions. It's a matter of thought. It's a matter of perception. It's a matter of consciousness and how we choose to evolve our ideas and perceptions of the world. So instead of looking for an answer here, an answer there, or an authority source here or an authority source there, this is about the expansion of awareness. That's what I hope the Secret Teachings is really all about. And in that theme, Malorcas45 in the chat says, based on what you were saying, Mike, the Fermi paradox is kind of the opposite. The Fermi paradox, of course, says that it's the paradox between the likelihood that, with Drake's equation, the likelihood that there are aliens, but then just like the absolute lack of evidence. And there's a paradox there. So we have to mention that as well to be objective about the whole thing. Final comments, final questions, final anything. If anybody in the chat has a question, throw it in there really fast. We'll go to Mike and Nick, and we'll wind down the show for tonight. Nick, why don't you go first?
Yep, absolutely. Really enjoyed the information that we talked about, especially on the 3-eye atlas. Definitely clarified a few things there, and I got to express my feelings on that as well. I'll be looking forward to seeing more. advanced information we get about that as it proceeds to do what it's doing, and the way we get more scientists that are agreeing that it might be something more than just a rock. So appreciated all that, and appreciate you guys having me on as well.
Yeah, of course. Did you learn anything tonight, or did you forget anything tonight?
Absolutely. No, definitely learned some things. Mike has some great information that was really worth hearing, and appreciate that. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story, Mike. What about you, Mike?
Yes, definitely. I think it's like you said, we're trying to inform at the same time entertain, right? Because I don't want to bore people. So hence, the jokes, the stories. I picked that UFO story because to me it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
At the same time, like I said, had some weird stuff to it where it could not be explained. So I thought it would be interesting because when I was doing the research, the description of the alien was just so bizarre. I was like, this is the story I'm doing. I've got to do that. I've got to do this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think another great show. I hope folks had fun. I commend everybody in the chat. You guys all get along. We don't even have a moderator in the chat like a lot of these shows do, where they have to boot people out. I think the chat is very civilized. You guys joke with each other, and you guys, have fun. And there's no troublemakers. So I think that's great. So I applaud everybody in the chat and listening for, letting us talk and letting other people in the chat state their opinions and not hammering other people. So that's a great job.
Awesome.
Yeah, we don't have a moderator. That's right. I forgot to do that. I think one or two times I put someone as a moderator, but yeah, I forgot to do that. Yeah, their chat room. I think we've attracted the right kinds of people to this show, and we can have very healthy discussions. Disagree sometimes, agree sometimes, and I hope you don't agree with everything that I say, or I hope you don't agree with everything that you think I say. I hope that you think for yourself. And apparently, based on the chat tonight, and based on the emails I get and the social media comments and whatnot, I think that people do largely think for themselves. So that's very refreshing. And you should, as a listener who is, part of the group we're talking about, you should pat yourself on the back a little bit for that, because you should see some of the other dumb people in ufology and science fiction, as most of you probably know from watching David Wilcock streams. There's a lot of really dumb people.
Yeah. I'm hoping he does a live stream this Sunday so we can maybe talk about it in the future.
He did do another stream. That's the one I have planned to do a show on. He's back after a month. He's back.
Oh, okay.
So we can do that. Hopefully we can do that. We can do that soon. The thing is, the dumb people are the ones that donate the money. So we're hoping to get some new dumb people.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. We got so many we need some dumb people in here to get some cash.
Yes. We need some dumb people. That's why we brought Nick on for the comedy relief. Hopefully he can bring in some of the people.
I am the dumb people attractor. That is me. Mm-hmm.
You're pouring in right now, Nick.
Well, not with those glasses you're.
No.
Nick's a smart guy. He's a very smart guy.
That's what they tell me. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Who tells you that?
Nick's real nickname is the General, if people didn't know out there.
It's funny. We've all known each other for so long. I have a friend from high school I've known longer than anybody else. He's my oldest friend, and he says, he's like, it's so weird that you go on shows, you're on national radio shows, you talk to all these people I've seen on TV, etc. You'd be on TV too if you weren't blacklisted. But he says, all these people, you do all this stuff. He's like, and I'm sure that there's so many people and so many listeners that want to just have conversations, go out to dinner with you, hang out with you. He's like, it's weird that I can just like text you, and to me, you're just a random guy.
Right.
I'm sure that we're all random people to some new listeners, but to a lot of listeners, there are some people, I don't know if they're in the chat, maybe a few of them. There are some people that have listened to our show or my show, this show for so long. They've listened to you, Nick, and Mike on the old WPRK.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have listened that long. So we have to be doing something correct.
Yeah, that's loyalty. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, how I first felt that way, Ryan, is like that we were doing something right is when, again, we went to get breakfast after the show, and the waitress came up to us and said, got our order and said, "Are you the guys from the radio show?" And we're like, yeah. She's like, "Oh, we listen to you in the back every morning." I was like, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was that vegan restaurant. Would you know what that restaurant was, Nick? It was right by the university.
Ethos.
Ethos.
One of my favorite restaurants. My wife and I used to go there all the time. Love it.
Yeah, we got well, Mike, you should also tell them why we got recognized, because it was early in the morning. There weren't many people in there. The show had just got done, and I believe that I had a bag of crystals that I was laying out on the table.
You had a bag. You had a bag of crystals that you laid out on the table, and that's kind of, she saw that, but I think she recognized she recognized our voices for sure.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I thought she was going to say something like, "What are you doing with those crystals?" But she was a fan and said that they listen to us in the back in the morning every time we're on. I was like, man, that is so cool. I was like, you know what? We are reaching people. I knew we were, but I was like, and like just local, right down the street.
Sure,
really right across the street. Yeah, that line from the X-Files. Someone's always listening, Mr. Mulder. Someone's always paying attention. It's true in radio. I could sit here in my little tiny radio room here in this apartment and just talk into a microphone, close my eyes, not look at the video, or just not even think that I'm recording. And then the number of people that listen to it's weird. There is that like disconnect in radio. It's weird that you can just sit in your house, sit in the studio, talk into a microphone, and yet you've got people all over the world that are listening to you. I'm sure you've had that feeling before, Nick.
Yeah, and that's also, though, I love the chat, the technology you get with this sort of thing you do here with the chat boxes there, and people being able to respond a little bit, and even to go back later and see it. I was looking at last week's show, the live show we did, and I was looking at all that because it comes up again, and I was reading a lot more of what I didn't get a chance to read at the time. Very interesting topics, very interesting things. People are definitely getting into it and being a part of it, which is wonderful.
Yes. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it, because I know you have to go, Nick. I know you might probably have to go too. It's getting late where you guys are. But Noka in the chat says, y'all are going to make this an every Friday thing. Would love to see that happen. Can we do that as often as we're able?
I'm in. Sounds great.
And you, Mike?
As often as I'm able, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. You guys do your homework, get some show ideas together. I mean, Nick just mentioned Ancient Aliens to me, and we put all this together. So whatever you guys have.
Yep. Wonderful. We'll communicate in the next couple of days. That's great. Sounds good.
I already have one off the top of my head, just because we were talking about a little bit about reptiles above and below ground. I think a show on Hollywood in general, the kind of strange stuff that Hollywood has done, even politically wise, kind of pushing communism back in the 30s and 40s with movies, and the studios and bands coming out of Hollywood, and the Viper Room, River Phoenix, and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be a great show to talk about.
Absolutely. We could stick in a little bit of the Me Too movement as well, because we got some big people that really devastated the Hollywood industry with that whole situation that went on.
Did you get Me Too, Nick? Like someone grab you, not you grabbing them. Did someone grab you?
Wait for that every day, but no one's grabbed me yet. I'm just waiting for that, Guys have a very different mentality than the girls do, and I understand that.
Well, actually, no, funny thing you said it. Terry Crews, that real big ex-football player, comedian guy, he got groped by another guy.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Yeah, it was a power thing. Just one of these Hollywood people just grabbed him.
Sure. Craziness. So.
Wild.
Yep. We'll try to avoid.
We'll try to put an occult paranormal type of spin on that. Maybe that's what I like to do on this show. But anyway, Nick, thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you for joining. Thank the dog. Thank the dog Loki for joining us tonight.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
It's great being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody out there.
You too. Have a great night. Thanks for joining everyone.
Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. We will kick Mike and kick Nick off of the stream. We'll bring up just me. Thank you for listening tonight. I think we've had more listeners on this show than we've had on previous live Friday shows. Wherever you're tuned in, however you're tuned in, thank you for taking time out of your evening, out of your night, out of your morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening. And hopefully you're actually listening. Or maybe, what do they say? Hearing, listening? Which one's more tuned in? you're hearing it, but you're not listening. Hopefully, you're actually listening and not just hearing the show. Although I understand some people put it on in the background. I hope you learned something tonight. I hope that you are interested, if you're a new listener, in listening to new shows, additional episodes of The Secret Teachings. I will show you before we finish the show tonight the website real fast so that you can see how to navigate it. Very simple. If you would like to become a subscriber to The Secret Teachings, if you would like to get access to the full show archive, get access to all of our past shows, you can go to the website, tstradio.info. There is the archive there on the website, all of our past shows. There's links to the different platforms. Please listen via Spreaker or Apple. If you're not listening there, that's okay. Spreaker just pays us more. And Apple, of course, you can leave us a review. But here's a list of shows. They'll keep loading if you keep scrolling down. There's a whole bunch of them going back a long time. If you would like to find one of my books, I have a page here on the website for all of my books. Like Occult Arcana has a tiny little section on some of the stuff we talked about tonight. You might, if you enjoyed tonight's show, you might enjoy Garden of Hallucinations. So this book here is covering a lot of ufological stuff, psychology, etc. You can also subscribe to the ad-free show. You'll get access to the montages and article archive. And if you're a yearly subscriber, you'll get access to the digital books that I've written. So you get digital copies of those books I just showed you and more. That's all at tstradio.info. It's kind of funny, too, because we're done with the show, but I think the numbers just surged past the most that we've had tonight. Makes me want to keep going, but I think that's enough. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, gals, for joining us whenever and wherever you're listening. I appreciate it so sincerely. If you want to support us, the links are all below. If you're watching the video on YouTube, if you're listening to the show, they're all below in the description of the show. You scroll down below that and you'll find all the other links. And let's see if there's anything else. Just people saying goodbye in the chat room. All right. Goodbye. Thank you. Malorcas, Joe, PT, Leonard, Cool Channel, Joe Ryder, Jello Puddin, Through the Darkness, Flux Capacitor, HP Burrito. Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. Sayonara. I will speak with you on the next broadcast. Stay safe, stay informed, stay healthy, and I will talk to you next week.